Chapter 70. The girl's large, icy blue eyes were filled with disbelief and disdain, as if Feng Wu had done something that angered the heavens. Feng Wu ignored the girl and quietly ate the drumstick on her plate. Seeing that Feng Wu was ignoring her, the girl was very unhappy. "Hey, why are you ignoring me? You really haven't seen the world. I really don't understand why Angel would invite someone like you to the birthday ball." Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, the girl's heart burned with anger. She had such a noble status, and this hateful commoner actually dared to ignore her. Stop messing around." A cold voice that was about to freeze sounded from behind the two girls. Feng Wu and the girl turned their heads at the same time, only to see a white-haired, blue-eyed youth slowly walking towards them. His movements were more elegant and charming than anyone else's, and with that androgynous face and that cold aura that was about to freeze, it was likely that there were countless girls chasing after him. When the girl called you or saw who it was, her small face fell. She glared at Feng Wu with some grievance, and then walked to the youth's side. Feng Wu completely ignored the two of them. From the beginning to the end, she only cared about food. The city lord's mansion was really a good place. There was a lot of food here. Next time, she would bring Tink with her, and everyone would eat together. The meeting between Feng Wu and the girl was like a small interlude. It should have been without any trace, but the girl's identity was not ordinary. Because she said that Feng Wu was not qualified to attend the ball, Feng Wu had gained another enemy. This enemy was none other than the host of the birthday ball, Angel. As the city lord's daughter, Angel naturally had a strong self-esteem. Because of the words that the girl called you or said, Angel felt that the level of her birthday ball had lowered, and that she had invited some lowly people, causing her to be laughed at. Yuer's identity was very special, and her status was even higher than her, the daughter of the city lord. After being scolded by such a noble lady, Angel naturally felt extremely embarrassed, and secretly decided that she would definitely teach Feng Wu a lesson. At this moment, of course, Feng Wu did not know that she had gained another enemy. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Feng Wu, Ajur, and Pierre returned to the small hotel together. The next day, the city lord kept his promise and sent a necromancer to deal with the undead girls. Along with the necromancer were a few strong guards of the city lord. They were all here to protect the necromancer. When the old village head saw the arrival of the magician and the city lord's guards, he naturally warmly welcomed them. When Feng Wu and Ajur left, they told the old village head the location of the cave. The old village head called several young people and the magician to enter the depths of the mountain forest together. The depths of the mountain forest was the territory of the ice bears. In fact, to reach the cave, they did not have to go through the gathering place of the ice bears. The group took a detour and walked to the cave marked by Ajur. When the group entered the cave, a bloody smell greeted them. The old village head's face was filled with sorrow, and the eyes of the young people in the village were filled with hatred. The magician and the guards walked at the front, and the old village head and the young people of the village naturally walked behind. After walking for more than 10 minutes, they passed through a passage and finally saw piles of dried corpses and a pool of blood. Heavens! The old village head saw such a bloody scene for the first time and almost fainted. Fortunately, there were many young people on the side who supported him. Truly pitiful girls. The necromancer could naturally see the resentful spirits of the young girls. The necromancer was a bit old, and he was wearing a white magic robe. His white hair was neatly draped over his back, and his beard almost reached his stomach. At this time, the old magician looked at the resentful spirits of the young girls and sighed. As a necromancer, he had always been in contact with all kinds of undead. Even though he had seen many undead, he was still shocked by so many young resentful spirits. Only people who had been cruelly killed in their lifetime would have such strong resentment. This cave was almost filled with resentment. It was no wonder that so many resentful spirits were born. Young lives, rest in peace. Purify the spirits. The old magician muttered a few words, and then waved the magic staff in his hand. A pure white light of purification flew out from the magic staff, and the whole cave was suddenly filled with scalp-tingling screams. "This, Sir Magician, this scream is..." The old village head was scared pale. Although he couldn't see the resentful spirits of the young girls, he could hear their screams. The screams seemed to come from hell, sharp and ear-piercing, with deep hatred and despair. Don't worry, this is to purify the resentment of their bodies. This process may be very painful, but after the pain, they can be reincarnated and start a new life. The old magician lightly said, "Thank you. Thank you so much." The old village head and the young people of the village cried and thanked the old magician. After a quarter of an hour, the resentful spirits of the young girls were washed away. The old magician chanted an incantation and sent these souls to reincarnate. Go back and call more people to deal with these corpses. There are so many corpses here. It seems that the missing girls in the last few years are all here. The guards sent by the city lord went back to call people to deal with the corpses. These girls died too miserably, and their bodies needed to be claimed by their families. Because the corpses of the missing girls were found, this matter quickly caused an uproar in the city. There was a new topic of conversation in the city, and now everyone's topic of conversation was about the missing girls. The inhumane murderer was hated and blamed by everyone, and the families of the victims hoped that the city lord could catch the murderer as soon as possible to get justice for the girls who died tragically. "Sir City Lord, I'm afraid this time's murder of the young girls is not as simple as it seems." The old magician returned to the city lord's mansion with his brows wrinkled. "What's the matter?" The city lord looked at the old magician's expression and knew that there was something fishy about this case. If it was just an ordinary murder case, there would be no need to kill people to make a blood pool. That blood pool is most likely not made by humans, but by an Azura. The old magician's words were undoubtedly a heavy bomb. Originally, the city lord thought that this was just a perverted murder case, but he didn't expect it to involve an Azura. This Azura was not a good thing. Legend has it that Azuras were born in the Azura Blood Sea. They were born in the Blood Sea and were naturally bloodthirsty and warlike. They seemed to have a natural desire for blood. Chapter 71. After the Pact of the Three Realms was established, the Shura people left the human world. At that time, the Shura king used supreme magic to create a new world, which was the current Shura world. With the establishment of the Pact of the Three Realms, the Shura people could not appear in the human world without the permission of the human world. Although the rules said so, there were still some Shura people who were not disciplined. They would not shout about the Pact of the Three Realms, they only thirsted for blood. These Shura people would use the space crack to come to the human world to commit crimes, and the purpose of the Star Hall was to catch such stowaways and let them be punished by the arbitration tribunal. Shura. There are actually Shura people in Frost City. The city lord was shocked. Thinking of the cruelty and ruthlessness of the Shura people, he suddenly felt uneasy. "Come, immediately contact the Star Hall," the city lord shouted. The panic in his voice could not be concealed. While the city lord's mansion was in a panic because of the discovery that the disappearance and death of the young girl was related to the Shura people, Fengwu and Ajur were not idle. Their mission was not completed yet. After meeting Wenda and his wife, Ajur felt that it was necessary to meet Miss Clara. "You want to see Clara?" Pierre was a little embarrassed. Clara was now locked in the arbitration tribunal. It was not easy to see her. "Yes, I have some questions that I must ask her personally," Ajur said affirmatively. "Well, as long as I can help Clara, I will find a way to let you two meet." Pierre was also going all out for his little green plum. Ajur and Fengwu stayed in Pierre's small hotel since that day, listening to the secrets that the people who were sent out to inquire about. After Ajur's investigation, there were a total of more than 20 villages that were in trouble. Each village lost more than 5 girls, and more than 20 villages added up to more than 200 girls. So many girls died, but it did not attract enough attention in the city lord's mansion. If the city lord had dealt with this matter early, so many girls would not have lost their lives. Ajur did not have a good impression of the city lord, who did not do anything. With such a serious matter happening, he did not investigate the case, but held a birthday party for his daughter. Pierre did not know what method Fengwu used, but 3 days later, Ajur and Fengwu successfully entered the place where the arbitration tribunal held the suspects. Because they were not relatives, if they wanted to visit, they had to go through many approvals. If the prison chief court sympathized with Clara and allowed Ajur and Fengwu to visit, they would have to wait at least half a month to see Clara. If they wanted to visit the suspect, it was impossible for them to be alone with the suspect. When Clara was brought to the reception room, there were 2 guards in the room. Clara was a beautiful girl with brown hair and brown eyes. Perhaps it was because of her mother's death and being treated as the murderer, she was under immense pressure. Her face was pale and spiritless. She looked like a fragile paper doll that could be blown away by a gust of wind. "Clara, are you okay?" As soon as Pierre saw Clara, he immediately held her hand across the table, his eyes full of concern. "I'm fine." When Clara saw Pierre, she tried to force a smile, but it was not so successful. "Don't be afraid, Clara. These 2 have accepted your mission to help you find the murderer. The murderer of your mother will be found, and you will come out safely." Pierre held Clara's hand tightly. "Pierre, don't waste time. Okay? We only have 1 hour." Ajur did not want to sit here and watch them flirt. I'm sorry, Clara. This is Ajur and this is Fengwu. Both of them are excellent adventurers. They have found some clues about your mother's case, and now they have some questions to ask you." Pierre scratched his head embarrassedly and then reluctantly let go of Clara's hand. "Hello, Miss Clara. I have some questions to ask you, and I hope you can cooperate with me." Ajur went straight to the point. Clara nodded. This was a matter of her innocence, so of course, she would cooperate. Although she had doubts about the strength of these 2 adventurers, now was not the time for her to be picky. Moreover, Pierre had brought them here as a form of recognition of their strength. "Ask away. As long as I know, I will tell you without hiding anything. I want to ask, on the day your mother was killed, did she leave the villa?" Ajur asked. Clara thought for a few seconds and said with certainty, "Yes, she left the villa early in the morning. She said she had something to discuss with my father. She went out for more than 2 hours and came back. When she came back, her face was very strange." Of course, the people of the arbitral tribunal had asked her these questions. She could recall the situation at that time with just a little thought. "Did Madame Marlene say anything to you after she came back?" Clara shook her head and said, "No, my mother didn't say anything to me. But when she came back, her face was very pale, as if she had been frightened. She was out of her mind. Since she came back, she has been locked in the room alone. She said nothing and did not come out to eat." "It's really strange." Ajur touched his chin. "Do you think the person who killed your mother was your father?" Clara was stunned. After being locked in this place for so long, she had asked herself this question more than once. Was it really her father? Was it the father who had loved her since she was a child? Unfortunately, no one could tell her the answer. Even she didn't know whether she should believe in her father anymore. Because she didn't know what to say, she could only smile bitterly. "I don't know how to answer you. In my memory, my father was a very gentle person. He loved me and our mother very much. If it was my father in the past, I can tell you with certainty that it couldn't be him. But now I don't know how to answer you. He has changed. I don't know him anymore. He no longer has the love he used to have for me. There is only indifference in his eyes. I don't know if it's him. I hope it's not." As she spoke, she clenched and unclenched her hands. The struggle in her heart was so obvious that it made Pierre's heart ache. "Well, let's forget about this question. I'll ask something else." Ajur coughed softly and then changed the topic. "On the night your mother was killed, did you see or hear anything?" Chapter 72. The reception room was very quiet, and only the sound of questions and answers could be heard. The 2 guards had been paying attention to Ajur and the others. Ajur certainly knew that he had been blatantly monitored, but he didn't care about it. "No, I didn't hear anything. It was raining heavily that night, and the sound of thunder and rain were intertwined. I couldn't hear anything at all. It wasn't until the next morning that I went to Mother's room to ask her to come down for dinner that I found out that Mother had been killed." Thinking of the scene at that time, she still trembled in fear. Her mother had died so miserably. Who killed her mother? She was such a good person. Clara recalled the past, and tears fell down one by one. Her tears fell on the back of her hand and splashed. An hour of visiting time passed in the midst of questions and answers. After an hour, Clara was brought back to her cell, and Pierre and the others left the arbitration tribunal. After returning to the small hotel, they simply ordered something and gathered together to discuss the case. How was it? After seeing Clara, did you find anything? Pierre pulled Ajur into the study and couldn't wait to ask. I did find something. Ajur touched his chin. Fengwu ate the snacks that Lam made for them. Ajur and Pierre didn't eat, and Fengwu ate one in each hand happily. In this situation, the most likely culprits are Wende and Dusha, but I always feel that something is wrong. Ajur frowned and seemed to be thinking about something. What's wrong? Pierre believed in Ajur's intelligence. At least his investigation had been effective, and he had found something, unlike the previous people who only knew how to follow Wende and Dusha, but in the end, they didn't find anything. Don't you think it's strange? If one of Wende and Dusha is the murderer, or if the two of them are accomplices, why did they do it the day before the dissolution of the marriage? If they wanted to kill Madame Marin from the beginning, why did they wait until 3 years later? Why didn't they kill Madame Marin as soon as they brought Dusha back? This was what Ajur couldn't figure out. After listening to Ajur's words, Pierre nodded. You're right. This is too strange. Why do we have to wait 3 years? Could it be that we're all wrong? Actually, Mr. Wende and Madame Tussaud aren't the murderers. The murderer is someone else. Pierre wanted to cry out in alarm. If they found that the investigation had gone in the wrong direction, all their previous efforts would have been in vain, and they would have to start all over again. Clara couldn't wait that long. If they couldn't find the murderer before the next verdict, Clara would be in danger. Just as Pierre's imagination was running wild, Ajur shook his head. No, I can be sure that the murderer is either Wende or Dusha, or they are accomplices. But didn't you just say that if it was them, they would have done it long ago? They wouldn't have to wait so long. That's the general case, but there are also unusual cases. Have you thought about it? On the day of Madame Marin's death, she told Clara that she was going to find Mr. Wende. Do you think that Madame Marin discovered some secret at that time and was killed to frame Miss Clara? What secret would Madame Marin discover? Although he admitted that Ajur's words made sense, he couldn't figure out what kind of secret Madame Marin could discover that would make her die so miserably. What if it's the secret of the Shura people? Ajur smiled coldly. Shura people? Pierre exclaimed. Fengwu, what is that? The Shura people are not ordinary humans. They are a race called the Shura people. The Shura people are born handsome and beautiful. At the same time, they are also the most bloodthirsty race. The Shura people were born in the sea of blood. They are born to love war and blood. Their thirst for blood is no less than that of the vampires. Ajur saw the confusion in Fengwu's eyes and explained some things about the Shura people to her. After listening, Fengwu nodded, indicating that she understood. Fengwu understood what the vampires were. When she stayed in the library, she read a lot of books. Among them, there was an introduction to the vampires. As for the Shura people, there was also an introduction to them. But the book didn't write about the Shura people, but the Shura people, which made Fengwu confused. Do you want to say that in fact, Madame Dusha isn't Shura, and Mr. Wende was actually bewitched by her to do bad things? This information was too much, so he had to think about it a little. After calming down a little, Pierre had to agree. Ajur's words were very reasonable. If he wasn't bewitched, Wende wouldn't have suddenly become so ruthless. The Shura people can't survive in the human world. The Shura people can't stand the magic of the human world, unless... Fengwu recalled the contents of the book. Unless they put on a layer of human skin. The human skin can help the Shura people to resist the magic corrosion. Ajur continued. Could it be that Madame Dusha is not a human, but in Shura and human skin? It was too inconceivable. He had thought of countless possibilities. For example, Madame Dusha was an evil sorcerer who could manipulate people's hearts, or Madame Dusha had put some strange curse on Wende to make him like this. None of these possibilities imagine the other party as in Shura. Who knows? Ajur shrugged his shoulders, pulled Fengwu and left the study together, and then went back to their rooms to sleep, leaving Pierre alone in a dilemma. The next day, Frost City welcomed a big shot. Of course, this person's arrival was a secret. Except for the higher-ups in the City Lord's mansion, no one else knew. This person was the Star General sent by the Star Hall, the greedy wolf star among the 28 star generals of the Star Hall. Greed was a very androgynous man. He was about 20 years old and wore a gorgeous magic robe. He even held a mirror in his hand and looked at himself from time to time. This kind of greedy wolf star was simply a kind of disillusionment for the city lord and others. Each of the Star Hall's star generals had great power. Before they met, the city lord thought of them as all kinds of high-end and high-class people. But when they met, it was better to never meet them. That kind of feeling was like you finally met your idol, but when you met him, you found out that your idol was a vegetable seller in the market. Although Greedy Wolfstar looked a bit feminine, he was still good at doing things. After greeting the city lord, he didn't even eat a bite and went to see the cave where the girl was killed. After confirming that there was really Inshura's residual aura there, he returned to the city. After returning to the city, the Greedy Wolfstar didn't stay idle. He strolled all the way. No one knew if he was looking for the hidden Shura or shopping. Chapter 73. Fengwu was very free today because there was a new development in the investigation of Madame Marlene's murder. A juror said that they were waiting for someone. As for who they were waiting for, Fengwu didn't ask, and a juror also pretended to be mysterious and didn't say. Fortunately, Fengwu had never been very curious, so she had nothing to do. Fengwu was chased out by Lamu to go shopping. Lamu said that there were many unique handicrafts in Frost City, as well as many beautiful clothes and accessories that were very popular with girls. Fengwu must go and take a look. Fengwu girl was very puzzled. Why must girls like those things? Although she didn't understand, she still went shopping obediently. Fengwu successfully established a good relationship with Lamu because of her good behavior during the stay in the small hotel. Lamu also personally made Fengwu a beautiful tutu dress. Fengwu went out today wearing the light purple dress that Lamu made personally. Recently, 3 major events had happened in Frost City, so there weren't many pedestrians on the streets. Most people went to look for the sacred beasts in the ancient magician's graveyard. There weren't many people who really stayed in Frost City. Fengwu walked leisurely on the streets aimlessly. Because her qigong was very good, when she stepped on the snow, she only left a shallow footprint, unlike others who left deep footprints. Fortunately, there were few people on the streets, so she didn't attract much attention. Little A, have you heard? Recently, XX Clothing Store launched a new style of dress. Those dresses are all made of magic materials. Not only are they beautiful when worn, but they can also resist a certain amount of magic damage. Let's go and take a look, shall we? Okay, little B, let's go now. Those clothes must be very beautiful. I must ask my father to buy one for me. Me too. I already asked my mother to order one for me. I heard that those clothes are limited edition and are very popular. If we don't get them soon, there won't be any left. Little C, you're so sly. Little A and Little B complained that Little C was not loyal enough. Fengwu was not far away from the 3 girls. She saw them talking about clothes and magic materials along the way. In short, they seemed to have endless things to talk about. Fengwu remembered that Lam had told her to go to the stores that sold clothes and accessories, but she couldn't find them. The 3 girls in front seemed to be going to buy clothes. Fengwu nodded and decided to follow them. Little B, do you feel like someone's following us? Little C said a little fearfully. I think so too. It can't be that murderous demon that's been spreading like wildfire in the city lately, right? Little B said with a panicked expression. What's there to be afraid of? We'll know when we turn around. You're so timid. Although Little A was also very scared, she had always been the boldest out of the 3 of them, so of course she couldn't be frightened at this time. Thus, she endured her fear and turned around to look. She was stunned. What a cute girl. She was wearing a light purple puffy skirt, her long hair draped over her waist, and she wore a crystal hairband on her head. Her eyes were as pure as black pearls. This girl was too cute. Who is she? She shouldn't be from our Frost City, right? I've never seen such a cute girl before. That's right, that's right. This girl is so cute, but why is she following us? After the 2 girls exclaimed, they couldn't figure it out. They didn't understand at all why ordinary girls from ordinary schools like them were worth being followed. Maybe it's on the way. We don't have to worry about it. We'll just go our own way. Little said domineeringly, and pulled the two girls who were still looking back from time to time towards the clothing store they were talking about. It wasn't that Fengwu didn't hear what the girls said. She was following them, so they weren't wrong. In order to get rid of Fengwu, the three girls rushed into the store, but they didn't expect Fengwu to follow them in as well. The three girls noticed that Fengwu didn't follow them after entering the store, but instead started picking clothes in the store. They finally breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that Fengwu wasn't following them anymore. At the same time, they secretly scolded themselves for making a fuss over nothing. So she was also coming to this store to buy clothes. No wonder she was going in the same direction as them. If that girl knew what they were thinking just now, they would be laughed at to death. Unfortunately, they didn't know that their guess was actually correct. Fengwu had followed them into the store. "Miss, these are the new designs that our store has just released. Because they're made of magical materials, they can automatically adjust the size of the clothes as long as you wear them. Not only do they fit you perfectly, they can also withstand a certain amount of magical damage. It's really very cost-effective." When a shop assistant saw that Fengwu was picking clothes, she immediately walked up to her and greeted her with a smile. "When you said that they can withstand magical damage, how much damage are they referring to?" Fengwu looked at the few fairy-like clothes hanging in front of her and asked the shop assistant seriously. "They can withstand half a layer of magical damage," the shop assistant said with the same expression. "So you're saying that they can't even withstand one layer?" Fengwu frowned, feeling that these clothes weren't as good as she had imagined. That's not wrong." The shop assistant was silent. This was the first time she had met such a serious customer. Under normal circumstances, those who came to their store to buy clothes were the lowest-level magic apprentices. How could these elementary apprentices have any chance of encountering magical attacks? That half a layer of magical damage resistance was just a gimmick. No one would take it seriously at all. Do you want to try it on?" The shop assistant wasn't sure whether this little girl was here to look for trouble or to buy things. However, as a shop assistant, she had to greet people with a smile at all times. As long as the customer didn't turn hostile, she had to properly serve the customer. "Okay." Nodding, she then carried the two clothes into the fitting room. The shop assistant breathed a sigh of relief. Facing the black-haired girl's serious appearance, she felt a lot of pressure. Fengwu tried on the two clothes. The size was just right. Although the defense was average, the design was good and very beautiful. "How much is this?" Fengwu had never bought clothes before. In the past, Auntie Lian had helped her prepare her things. Later on, a juror had helped her. This was the first time Fengwu had gone out to buy things on her own. The girl was a little excited to buy something for the first time. Of course, it couldn't be seen with her stoic face. "This dress is only 50 gold coins each." "It's very cheap," the shop assistant said with a smile. She wasn't lying. Among the clothes made of magical materials, the price of these dresses really wasn't that expensive. Of course, they couldn't have used precious magical materials. So expensive. Fengwu only had 150 gold coins on her. Of the 500 gold coins she had earned last time, after deducting the cost of the teleportation portal, she only had 300 gold coins left. She and a juror could each get 150 gold coins. Chapter 74. It's too expensive. I don't want it. Fengwu lowered her head and went out in a bad mood. The young girl realized that she was poor and only had enough money to buy 3 pieces of clothing. "Please take care. You're welcome to come again." The shop assistant was not surprised by this situation. Some girls who did not have that much money had to give up on the clothes they liked because they did not have enough money. However, he couldn't assume that those girls would never come to buy clothes just because of this. Just like last time, there was a girl who didn't have that much money at the moment, but after a few days, she came to buy 2 pieces of clothes at once. Therefore, it was wrong to look down on customers just because of their temporary purchasing power. The shop assistant saw Fengwu walk out of the shop and was about to pack up the clothes and greet other customers. "Wait, wrap up these clothes for me." The shop assistant looked over and saw a man who was more beautiful than a woman standing beside the cashier. His eyes seemed to release millions of volts of electricity, causing her to almost have a nosebleed. "Oh, okay." The shop assistant wrapped the clothes with a red face and took the gold coins from the handsome man. Then, she watched him leave with a dreamy expression. It was not until he left that she came back to her senses. Handsome man, why did you appear? My aesthetic standards have improved so much. What if I can't get married in the future? When Tan Lang chased out with the pile of clothes, he saw a cute girl in light purple clothes walking listlessly on the snow. What was strange was that there was a thick layer of snow on the ground, but when the girl walked, she did not leave any footprints. If one did not look carefully, they would not see any traces of someone walking on the ground. Tan Lang also inadvertently noticed Feng Wu. He had never seen anyone walk on the snow without leaving footprints. Of course, if one walked with magic, they would not leave footprints. However, the strange thing was that this girl could do this without using any magic. This made Tan Lang very interested in this girl. In order to create an opportunity to get to know her and leave a good impression, he bought these clothes that Feng Wu did not buy. He hoped that the girl in front of him would be friends with him for the sake of the clothes. Beautiful girl, I really did not expect to see such a beautiful girl like you in this small frost city. Let's be friends. Tan Lang smiled magnificently. He knew his charm. He did not believe that a little girl could ignore his face that could turn all living things upside down. Feng Wu stared blankly at the man in front of her. This person's smile was very strange. See, I told you, no woman can escape the charm of Lord Greedy Wolf. Tan Lang proudly stroked his hair. Wretched. Didn't Annie Lien say that your smile is called a wretched smile? She had heard this phrase from Annie Lien. When she lived in the village, there was always an ugly uncle who would smile like this whenever he saw Auntie Lien. At that time, she had asked Annie Lien why that person was smiling. Annie Lien said that in the future, if he saw someone smiling like that, he should hide further away. It was just that Auntie Lien didn't explain what she meant by vulgar, so she didn't understand wretched. As a star general, Tan Lang wretched, what kind of eyesight was this? He should find a doctor to properly examine her eyes. This child's eyes definitely had problems. Little sister, the word wretched is not used like this. You should say that I am handsome and extraordinary, peerless in my generation, devastatingly beautiful. A string of praises seemed to come out of his mouth without thinking. Hearing this, the Feng Wu girl stared blankly. Narcissistic. This word was something she had heard from Tink's mouth. Sometimes, when a juror said something she did not understand, Tink would say that a juror was narcissistic. Tink said that the so-called narcissism was a feeling of superiority over oneself, an expression of excessive self-confidence. She felt that the man in front of her she did not recognize was the narcissistic word Tink spoke of. Narcissistic? No, this is called self-confidence. Tan Lang's forehead was already beginning to show a small well. Forget it, let's not talk about it. Let's go. Today, Big Brother Tan Lang will treat you to cake. There just so happens to be a cake shop nearby. Let's go eat. Tan Lang felt that if he continued to speak with the girl in front of him, he probably would have a brain hemorrhage. No, a juror said that I cannot go with someone I do not know. Although Feng Wu did not understand the meaning of others' words most of the time, she was still an obedient girl. At the very least, when someone was sincerely thinking for her good, she still had to listen to what that person said. Just like what a juror said, she knew that a juror was worried that she would be deceived, so Feng Wu very obediently agreed to not go with a stranger. Then very well. I am called Tan Lang, 25 years old this year, a youthful and beautiful youth. I have a proper occupation, a stable income, powerful strength, absolutely upright and excellent. Tan Lang felt very good about himself as he flung his hair. Your turn. What is your name? Tan Lang smiled like Grandmother Wolf who was tempting Little Red Riding Hood. Whose family did this girl come from? She was so innocent that she was stupid. He really did not know how her family raised her to be like this. Tan Lang, who was smiling happily, suddenly remembered that Feng Wu had said that he was smiling wretchedly. He immediately restrained his smile. He could not let the girl hate him. My name is Feng Wu. I am a first-year student of the Notre Dame du Starlight. I am a swordsman. Feng Wu thought for a moment before replying, Now we are not strangers. You know my name, and I know your name. Let's go and eat together. Tan Lang pushed the girl from behind and pushed her into a cake shop. The cake shop's business was pretty good. Most of the customers who came to eat cake were young girls and some couples. When Fengwu and Tianlang walked in, the customers and the waiters in the shop immediately brightened up. Wow, what a handsome guy and a beautiful girl. They were really lucky today to see such an eye-catching pair. What would the two of you like to eat? Today's chestnut cake is not bad. Chestnut cake is on special sale today. As long as you buy 5 pieces of chestnut cake at once, you can get a cup of delicious fresh fruit juice. The waitress was a very beautiful young girl. When the girl was speaking, her eyes could not help but stare at Tianlang nonstop. What a beautiful boy. How could there be such a good-looking person? Xiaowu, order whatever you want to eat. Don't save me money. Tianlang's tone was like a nouveau riche. Miss, please take a look. This is the menu. Fortunately, the waitress was not mesmerized by the beauty. At the last moment, she remembered that she was still working. She could not let a beauty affect her work. Chapter 75. Fengwu took the menu and looked at it for a while. She felt that all of them looked delicious. What should she do if it was difficult to choose? Seeing the troubled look on Fengwu's face, he guessed that she probably didn't know which one to eat first. So he said again, if you don't know what to choose, you don't have to choose. Give me one of your best-selling cakes and a pot of herbal tea. Okay, please wait for a moment. The waiter took the menu and left to prepare the cake for the two of them. A few minutes later, the pastries ordered by Tianlang were all delivered to the table. There were more than 10 kinds of delicious cakes on the table, and the table was almost full. Initially, Tianlang thought that he might have ordered too much. He felt that it was too sweet just by looking at it, so how could he eat it? In order to maintain his perfect figure, he had always paid special attention to his diet. Therefore, he ordered these pastries for Fengwu in front of him. He would not eat such sweet things. But now, looking at the thin and weak girl in front of him, and then looking at the table full of cakes, he suddenly wondered if he had ordered too much yesterday. Such a thin and weak girl would probably not be able to eat more than 2 pieces. He wanted to ask the waiter to return some of the cakes, but he accidentally saw the Fengwu girl's eyes shining. He could not say it out loud. Forget it. If she couldn't finish it, he would take it away. He, Tianlang, could not disappoint the girl. Eat slowly. If you can't finish it, it's okay to take it away. As he spoke, he was shocked by the speed at which the girl ate the cake. She ate a cake the size of a fist in 2 bites. He only said a few words, but the girl in front of him actually ate 2 pieces of cake. Now, she was attacking the 3rd cake. He did not know what to say after that. Strange, what did he want to say just now? 15 minutes later, more than 10 pieces of cake were all gone. All the plates were clean and looked no different from washed ones. Are you full? Do you want a few more slow cakes? Tianlang asked carefully. No need. I still have to go back for dinner later. I can't eat too much. Fengwu looked at Tianlang seriously and said, Young girl, are you sure you're not joking? After eating more than 10 pieces of cake, you're actually telling me you're planning to go back for dinner. Xiaowu, when you get married in the future, you must find a rich husband, understand? Ordinary people can't afford to raise you. Tianlang looked into Fengwu's eyes seriously. Please look at my sincere eyes. I'm doing this for your own good. Oh, I know. Ajur said the same thing. Fengwu nodded. Ajur had said the same thing after seeing her appetite. So he wasn't the only one who thought this way. Tianlang nodded and understood. Here, this is a gift for you. Tianlang suddenly took out an exquisite bag. This was the bag that all the clothing stores on the continent used to store clothes. For me. She took it doubtfully and opened it. It turned out to be the clothes she had tried on in the store just now. I saw that it looked good when you tried it on. Then I saw that you didn't buy it, so I bought it for you. This is a gift for a friend. You can't reject it. As he spoke, he winked playfully. Fengwu looked at the clothes and then at Tianlang. Ajur said that she couldn't accept gifts from strangers. Tianlang treated her to cake and even chatted with her. They should be friends. Friends should be able to accept gifts, right? Fengwu wasn't too sure, but seeing Tianlang's expectant eyes, she still accepted the gift. I don't have a gift for you. Her voice was a little listless. It's okay. You can give it to me when you find something suitable. Tianlang said generously. Tianlang, you're actually a good person. He bought slow cakes for her and even gave her a gift. Had he been given the good guy card? Tan Lang was a little depressed. Why was this girl so dumb? After Tan Lang went to the cashier to pay the bill, he left with Feng Wu. He was afraid that he would see the strange look from the waiter if he left a little later. Let's go. I'll send you back. Tan Lang said with a smile. You want to send me back? Feng Wu held the bag of clothes in one hand and looked cute. Yeah, I'm going to meet your friend Ajur. Actually, Ajur and I know each other. Tan Lang rubbed the girl's soft black hair. Tan Lang was like a satisfied cat. Her hair was really soft. You know Ajur? Feng Wu widened her eyes in surprise. Tan Lang was Ajur's friend? Let's go. We'll know when we meet him. Tan Lang grabbed Feng Wu's hand and walked forward. After a few steps, Feng Wu suddenly stopped moving. Tan Lang couldn't pull her away no matter how hard he tried. 3 black lines appeared on his forehead. Sister Xiao Wu, I'm not lying to you. I'm really Ajur's friend. Tan Lang thought that he was being suspected. He sighed and tried to convince the girl to believe him. No, you're going in the wrong direction. It's this way. The girl calmly pulled her hand out and turned to look in the other direction. Let's go. Pierre's small hotel was doing very well because of the 2 big events that happened in Frost City. It wasn't dinner time yet, but there were already many people sitting in the lobby on the first floor drinking and eating. They were all eating barbecued meat. Lam's barbecued meat was excellent and was very popular with the guests. Pierre and Ajur were also sitting at a wooden table with a cup of ale in their hands. Little Bun was playing upstairs with Little White accompanying him. While they were eating happily, the door opened. A handsome man walked in first. The man was so beautiful that it was hard to tell if he was a man or a woman. His face could kill both men and women. Welcome. Lam immediately went to greet him. He wondered where this young man came from. It was too dangerous for him to walk alone outside. The handsome man calmly walked into the shop. Behind him was a little beauty in a light purple dress. This little beauty was too familiar. Xiao Wu, why did you come back with Tan Lang? Ajur guessed that the necromancer would definitely find the problem with the cave and report it to the Star Hall. But he didn't expect that the Star Hall would send the sissy Tan Lang. Tan Lang was one of the 28 star generals of the Star Hall. He was a magician, but his swordsmanship was also outstanding. He was a very powerful opponent. In the Star Hall, his position wasn't low and he was very important. It was just that he was too vain. In the morning, it would take him 2 hours to dress up and wear the clothes he was going to wear that day. On average, he would look in the mirror once every hour. It was said that the mirror in his hand was his weapon. The weapons of star generals could freely change their forms. Every generation of star generals could change their weapons once when they took over the position. Of course, that was the only time. Chapter 76. When the weapon's transformation was complete, the corresponding constellation would bestow the weapon with the corresponding power. Every generation of star generals couldn't use the same weapons, and of course, their functions couldn't be exactly the same. When a weapon transformed, if you wanted it to be a sword, then it would be a sword. If you wanted it to be a staff, then it would be a staff. Among star generals, not all of their weapons were swords and staffs, but their weapon was a mirror. Perhaps this guy alone was the only one. Greedy Wolf's mirror had the function of reflecting the truth. It was very effective against those demons and Ajuras who were good at disguising themselves. Thinking of this, Ajur could guess why this guy came. Little Flame, long time no see. Greedy Wolf walked to Ajur's table and sat down. Many people noticed Greedy Wolf. After all, he was very handsome, and it was hard for him not to attract attention. Fortunately, there were only men here, and only Lamu and Feng Wu were women. Although Greedy Wolf's face was indeed very eye-catching, men always valued strength more. Greedy Wolf didn't have any weapons in his hands, and he had the posture of a noble young master. Except for Ajur, who knew his background, no one could treat such a beautiful man as a master. Xiao Wu, you're back? Ajur was too lazy to pay attention to this guy, and directly ignored him. Yes, this is a gift from Greedy Wolf. Feng Wu still wasn't sure whether she should accept Greedy Wolf's gift, and she was a little hesitant when she spoke. Ajur waved his hand. It's okay. Just accept this guy's gift. This guy doesn't have any other skills, but he has a lot of money. After saying that, he curled his lips at Greedy Wolf. This guy was still as annoying as when he was a child. Greedy Wolf felt a little itchy to beat him up. Come, sit down and eat something. Xiaowu, you've been out for so long. You must be hungry. Pierre said to Fengwu considerately.
Yes.
Fengwu nodded. She handed the clothes that Tanlang gave to Rom and sat beside Pierre. Tanlang had already taken the seat beside Ajur. I didn't expect the Star Hall to send you here. I thought it would be Wu Chu or Lianjin. Ajur took a big gulp of ale and glanced at Greedy Wolf carelessly. The two of them happened to have other missions and were not around. Ziwei had no choice but to send me, Tanlang said nonchalantly. In any case, he and this brat hated each other. Brother Tanlang is from the Star Hall? Pierre had never thought that one day he would be able to drink with those big shots of the Stars Hall. The identity of Greedy Wolf surprised and delighted him. He's just a janitor in the Star Hall. Don't worry about him. Ajur sneered and said disdainfully, Sweep the yard. Even if he was beaten to death, he would never associate this Lord Greed with the aunties and uncles who swept the yard. Ajur is right. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me. Eat, eat. Tanlang, who was called an uncle who swept the yard, was eating the barbecue and ale that Rom had just given him. Tanlang was already eye-catching. Sitting at the same table was Ajur, a flame-like handsome man. Two handsome men gathered at their table. Even if there were no women around, they still attracted a lot of attention. The hall was not a place to talk. After the four of them finished eating, they went to the second floor and went directly to Pierre's study. Tell me, you've been in Frost City for a few days. You should have found out a lot of things. Tanlang sat on the sofa in the study as if he was familiar with it. It was just a simple action of sitting down, but he could make it look elegant and charming. That's true. In Frost City, the most suspicious people are Wenda and Dusha. Take a good look at their true faces with your mirror. Tanlang nodded, accepting Ajur's advice. After that, Ajur told Tanlang about what had happened in Frost City recently. Of course, the most important thing was the things that happened around Wenda's family, as well as the hundreds of female corpses in the cave. This time, Xiaowu and I have accepted a mission to find the murderer. Before you take the Shura away, remember to let me and Xiaowu hand in the mission. Ajur was not willing to work for free. He and Fengwu still needed to make money. Tanlang felt that it was nothing, so he agreed. Since he agreed, Ajur did not think about wasting time. He had not done anything in the past 2 days because he was waiting for the people from Star Hall to come. Because the matter involved the Shura, it was not simple. Star Hall was responsible for arresting these illegal immigrants who did not abide by the Convention of the Three Realms. Of course, the arresting work could only be carried out after the people from Star Hall arrived. When night came, the moon of Frost City hung high in the sky with a cold chill. At this time, the manor where Mr. Wanda lived was silent. It was as if no sound could be heard. There was a faint candlelight in the manor, which made people feel that it was not an empty house. What's going on? Why are they sleeping so early? Ajur, Tanlang, and Fengwu sneaked into the manor where Wanda and his wife lived. However, the silence and gloominess of the manor made people feel very uneasy. There's something wrong with this place. It was not Tanlang's first time on a mission. Naturally, he could tell that something was wrong with the manor. It was too quiet. Even though most people in Frost City were used to going to bed early because the night was longer than the day, it should not be so quiet. There should be servants keeping watch at night in the manor. Xiaowu, be careful later. If you can't win, run. Okay? Ajur looked at Fengwu worriedly. He was afraid that she would be so stupid that she would choke herself to death. Okay. Nodding obediently, Ajur was relieved. He knew that Fengwu would definitely do what she promised. I'm very powerful, Fengwu said seriously. She had Xiaochun and could protect herself. Unfortunately, no one believed her. No one would believe that a freshman could be so powerful. Tanlang patted the girl's head. Then, the three of them moved carefully in the courtyard. There were no candles in the courtyard. They could only rely on the faint moonlight for illumination. When the three of them passed by a very beautiful flower bed, Fengwu suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Ajur had been paying attention to Fengwu. When he found that Fengwu did not follow, he immediately turned back to look for her. There's a person buried here. These flowers are very sad. They said that the person buried here is a good person. A person buried here? A juror had a certain understanding of Feng Wu's ability. He knew that she could understand the language of these plants. Therefore, if Feng Wu said that there was a person buried here, then there must be a person buried here. Chapter 77. Don't worry about it for now. Let's find Wenda and Dusha first. Tan Lang made a prompt decision. The three of them moved forward again. They decided to test that Dusha first. Dusha's identity was a mystery. Ever since they came to Frost City, several major events had happened in Frost City. In short, this woman was a juror's most suspicious target. Just as the three of them reached the door and were about to open it, the door suddenly opened from the inside. The person who opened the door was a girl dressed as a maid. When the girl saw three strangers suddenly appear, she was so frightened that she immediately wanted to scream. Tan Lang quickly covered the maid's mouth. Don't scream. We're not bad people. Take us to a hidden place now. We have something to ask you. Tan Lang covered the girl's mouth with one hand and restrained the girl's body with the other, not allowing her to move. The girl nodded and then obediently led them to a room where miscellaneous items were stored. This room was filled with miscellaneous items that were not usually used, but it did not look like anyone would come here. I'll let you go now. We have something to ask you. Answer our questions properly and we won't hurt you. After Tan Lang finished speaking, he gently let go of the girl's mouth. The girl first heaved a sigh of relief, then turned around to look at Tan Lang and the other two. Are you investigating Master Wenda and Madame Dusha? The girl's voice was very excited, and there was even some anticipation in her voice. How did you know? A juror did not expect this maid to be so smart. Wouldn't a normal person think that they wanted to break into the house to steal? I guessed. The girl said embarrassedly. Do you know something? Tan Lang was worthy of being a Star Hall's star general. He saw through the girl's hesitation at a glance. I can tell you what I know, but please save Madame Dusha. As long as you promise to save her, I'll tell you what I know. The girl anxiously wanted to pull Tan Lang's sleeve, but who was Tan Lang? He never liked strangers having physical contact. If he was not afraid that the maid would scream, he would not have touched her at all. The girl did not reach out her hand after grabbing the air. Instead, she grabbed her skirt with both hands, appearing to be at a loss. Who are you? Why do you want us to save Madame Dusha? A juror suddenly felt that this girl's identity might not be ordinary. Could she be Dusha's confidant? It had to be said that a juror was right. This girl was really Madame Tussauds' trusted aide. My name is Sheila. I'm Madame Tussauds' dowry maid. Sheila clutched her skirt. Although she was a little hesitant, she still revealed her identity. A juror and Tan Lang exchanged glances. They were so lucky to have met a big fish that was useful to them. As far as I know, the current Mr. Wenda loves Madame Tussaud very much. Why do you still want us to help you save Madame Tussaud? Greed asked. If it's the real Mr. Wenda, I naturally wouldn't be worried. But this person is no longer Mr. Wenda. Sheila suddenly covered her mouth and cried bitterly. Her cries were filled with despair and sadness. What's going on? Can you tell us the whole story? How did Madame Tussaud get involved with Mr. Wenda? Originally, a juror had always thought that the problem was most likely Madame Tussaud. Her origins were a mystery, and she had suddenly appeared in Frost City. Since her arrival, there had been so many murders. All of these incidents could not be unrelated to her. But now, listening to the little maid's words, it had nothing to do with Madame Tussaud. It was all Wenda's fault. Most importantly, Wenda was not the real person. They had thought of many possibilities, but they had never suspected that Wenda was fake. This news really surprised a juror in Greed. Only Feng Wu was relatively calm. She had a stoic expression the entire time. Actually, our madam has known Mr. Wenda for a long time. Madam is the sister of Master's first love. Master and Madam's sister were originally a couple. At that time, Master's family business had some problems. Madam's family did not agree to the marriage. Instead, they married Madam's sister to a rich aristocrat. Unfortunately, that noble committed a crime, and in the end, his entire family was implicated. Even the Madam's family suffered a serious blow, and the family fell into decline. At that time, the Madam was only a 10-year-old child, But she saw her family members leave her one by one because they could not withstand the blow. Just when Madame couldn't hold on anymore, Master one day appeared. At that time, Miss Clara was already 3 years old. Master Wendell and Madame Marin's relationship was very stable. When he heard that something had happened to his first love's family, he was still worried and wanted to take a look. When Master Wendell arrived, Madame was the only one left in her family. Master Wendell was a good person. Because of his wife's status, it was inconvenient to bring her home, so he bought another house outside Frost City and left a few servants to take care of his wife's daily life. Master Wendell also often came to visit. Madame was a kind person. Most of the servants in the house were pitiful people who were taken in by Madame. I was also taken in by Madame. After Madame took me in, I became Madame's personal maid. After becoming Madame's maid, I learned that Madame had been in love with Master Wendell. It was just that she was too young at that time, and Master Wendell already had Madame Marin. Madame had always hidden her feelings in her heart. This feeling was hidden for 12 years. When Madame was 22 years old, she saved a pitiful man. That man was an orphan in the village. He was also in his 20s. At that time, Madame saw him lying on the roadside with blood all over his body, so she saved him. That man was very diligent and efficient in his work. His popularity in Madame's villa was getting better and better. At that time, several of us girls who were also maids fell in love with him. We hoped that Madame could make one of us become his wife. Originally, I was very confident in becoming his wife because I was the most beneficial person by Madame's side. Among all the maids, Madame loved me the most. Wait, what we want to hear is about Wendell and Madame Tussaud, not about your love history. When Ajur heard that she had actually changed the topic from Madame Tussaud to himself, he couldn't help but speak out to stop her. This is also related to Madame, and it's very important. Please listen more, and you will understand. Sheila was a little embarrassed and said eagerly, Ajur, let her talk. I think she will talk about this matter. It shouldn't be something insignificant. Tanlang was much more patient than Ajur. Chapter 78. Ajur nodded in agreement and let her continue. Sheila took a deep breath and continued. That man was called Marlin, and I liked him. I also thought that I would marry him, but later on, I found that he often stared at the Madame in a daze and would secretly hide the Madame's handkerchief. At that time, I knew that the one he liked was not us maids, but the Madame. Marlin fell in love with the Madame. This was simply a bolt from the blue for me. I knew that even if Marlin loved the Madame, there would be no result between them. I wanted Marlin to dispel the thoughts in his heart for the Madame, so I began to hint to him that the Madame had a sweetheart. Although I hinted many times, I also knew that the Madame's love for Master Wendell could not be known by others, so I did not hint that the person was Mr. Wendell. But I did not expect Marlin to be so smart. When Mr. Wendell came to visit the Madame, he discovered the Madame's feelings for Master Wendell. I thought that he would give up. As long as he gave up, he would be able to accept my feelings. After all, I loved him so much. But I did not expect that Marlin would disappear the next day. I thought that he could not bear the blow, so he left without saying goodbye. Although my heart was in pain, I believed that he would come back one day. Not long after Marlin left, Mr. Wendell came to visit the Madame again. But this time, after Mr. Wendell left, the Madame was as happy as a happy bird. Later on, the Madame told me that Mr. Wendell actually responded to the Madame's love, and he also planned to take the Madame to his home, and wanted to dissolve the marriage with Madame Marin. All of this was simply inconceivable. Mr. Wendell used to visit the Madame every day, and I saw very clearly that Mr. Wendell did not have any feelings for the Madame. So how could he suddenly love the Madame so much that he was willing to give up his original family for her? But the Madame was too happy and did not listen to my persuasion. She only wanted to become husband and wife with Mr. Wendell and be together forever. Later, the Madame only took me, a maid, and left the house that she had lived in for more than 10 years, and went to Master Wendell's manor, where we met Madame Marin and Miss Clara for the first time. Master Wendell had a big quarrel with Madame Marin in front of me and Madame. Madame Marin insisted on not canceling the marriage. The two of them were in a deadlock. Madame was sandwiched between them and had to bear the supercilious looks of the servants in the manor. This made Madame very sad, but she couldn't bear to force Master one day thinking about what had happened when she first came to this manor. It was as if a lifetime had passed. If she knew the truth of the matter, she would not have let Madame come to this place no matter what. After 3 years, Madame Marin finally thought it through and was willing to help Master Wanda and Madame Tassad. Marin had left half a year ago, and as long as they dissolved their marriage, they would no longer have any relationship with each other. I thought that Madame Marin and Master Wanda would finally be able to live a happy life. Madame Marin was also very happy. She had waited for so many years, and finally, she and Master Wanda would be together. But I gradually felt that something was wrong. Not long after Madame Marin moved away, the old servants in the manor who had been working for a long time were dismissed by Master Wanda. Although Master Wanda was still a gentle master, his eyes often reminded me of Marlin. I thought that I was thinking too much and missed Marlin too much, so I had this kind of feeling. Thinking of Marlin, the man she loved deeply, she sighed. Things had developed like this because of this man. If she had not saved this man and returned home, would these things have happened? She didn't know. Ajur, Tanlang, and Fengwu quietly listened to Sheila's story. No one spoke to interrupt her. They had a feeling that the truth of the incident was about to emerge. Until late one night, I couldn't sleep and got up to drink water. But I saw Marlin wearing a black robe walking into Master's study. I was worried that Marlin might know that Madame Marlin and Master Wanda were going to get married and came to find trouble with Master. So I quietly peeped through the unlocked door to see the scene in the study. Who would have thought that I would see something I would never forget for the rest of my life? Marlin took off his skin from his head to his feet. After taking off his skin, he turned into a stranger. That man was extraordinarily handsome, but he gave off a dangerous vibe. After that man took off his skin, he put on a new skin. This new skin was actually Master Wanda's skin. At that time, I was stunned. I wanted to quietly return to the room, but who knew that I would accidentally make a sound? Master Wanda immediately ran out to check. I quickly hid in an empty guest room. At that time, a new maid happened to be secretly eating in the kitchen. She heard the noise and came out to check the situation, but she was discovered by Master Wanda. Master Wanda thought that she was the one who found out his secret, so he directly sucked the new maid's blood. I saw Master Wanda bury the new maid's body under the flower bed. I quietly returned to the room when Master Wanda went to bury the body. From that day on, I knew that Master Wanda was not the master that Madame Marlin loved. I didn't know who he was. I thought about hinting at Madame Marlin, but Madame Marlin was a simple woman. She didn't know how to hide her emotions. I was afraid that the devil would harm Madame Marlin if he found out the truth. After hesitating for a while, I decided not to tell Madame Marlin about it. How did Madame Marlin die? Was she killed because she found out Wanda's true face like you? Ajur suddenly thought of Madame Marlin's death. His intuition told him that Madame Marlin's death must be related to this matter. Shira's expression stiffened, and then her eyes were full of regret. Madame Marlin's death was an accident. The day before Madame Marlin decided to divorce Master Wanda, Madame Marlin went to Master Wanda to talk about the custody of Miss Clara. At that time, before Master Wanda came down, I gave Madame Marlin some hints, hoping that she could find out that there was something wrong with Master Wanda. Then, she could report this matter to the city lord. That way, Madame Marlin would be saved, and the devil would also be arrested. Hearing this, Tanlang sneered, "Since you already knew that there was something wrong with Master Wanda, why didn't you go to the city lord's mansion to report it yourself? Instead, you hinted at Madame Marlin. If it weren't for you acting smart and hinting, Madame Marlin would have dissolved her marriage with the fake Wanda the next day and live a good life with her daughter. In the end, you are just a selfish woman. I'm just a maid. It's not that easy to see the city lord. If I reported it and was found out by that person, he would definitely kill me." Chapter 79. At first, Sierra felt a little guilty, but the more she spoke, the more she felt that she didn't do anything wrong. She was just a little maid. What could she do? What could she do? She only hinted to Madame Marin to protect herself and Madame. What did she do wrong? She didn't do anything wrong. You can't see the city lord, but you can go to the Star Hall for help. You don't have to go to the Star Hall in person. Just write a letter and send it out. You won't expose yourself. Don't say that you can't read. Even if they were civilians, the Empire allowed them to learn a certain amount of knowledge, so these servants actually knew how to write. I, I, I can't expose myself. Madam and I will be in danger. I can't. Sheila could only repeat those few words with a pale face. Every word was so weak that it couldn't hide her selfish and self-reliant nature. You deliberately hinted that this Master Winda might be a fake in front of Madame Marlene, and then Madame Marlene wouldn't run to the fake Winda to confront him, right? A juror interrupted her impolitely. No, that's not it. Madame Marin was just trying to find out when she was talking to Master. Perhaps Master noticed her. That night, I saw Master go out once, and the next day, I heard the news of Madame Marin's death. The reason why the fake Master framed Clara was because he was afraid that Clara would find out that he was a fake father sooner or later, so he took the initiative to gain the upper hand. Those old servants who had served the real Master Winda for many years, I'm afraid that when he replaced the real Master One, they found all kinds of reasons to get rid of them. A juror said faintly. It was easy to understand why they got rid of those people, because they were all old people who followed Winda. No matter how good a person was at pretending to be another person, there would be a time when he would give himself away. That was why the fake drove away those old people who could easily see through the flaws. On the other hand, Madame Marlene had been using their relationship to cover up her change. Clara was originally the most troublesome because she was the daughter of Marlene and Winda. Unless Clara was married off, there was no good reason to chase her away. When he killed Marlene, he had already thought of framing Carola. Once Carola became the murderer of her mother, she would have to spend the rest of her life in prison. Naturally, it would be impossible for her to go home and find out the truth that he was not the real one. Sheila didn't say anything, obviously agreeing with the juror's guess. Please don't hurt our madam. Madam is really a good person. She doesn't even know that Master is a fake. Please don't hurt her, okay? Greed looked at her. Although he didn't want to admit it, although this girl was very selfish, she really wanted to protect Madame Tussaud. However, her actions caused many people to die because of her. If she didn't go to Marlin and give him a hint, maybe the real Winda wouldn't have died. If she didn't go to Madame Marlene, then Madame Marlene wouldn't have been killed, and Clara wouldn't have been made the scapegoat. Although she was a loyal servant, she had played a major role in all these tragedies. Even the maid had died because of her. Greedy Wolf had always disliked people like her, who constantly sought death and caused the deaths of others. You don't know? You really don't know? Even you, the maid, could feel that something was wrong with Master Winda before you found out the truth. As the fake's pillow, and also secretly loved the real Winda for 12 years, how could she not notice it? A juror sneered. If Madame Tussaud didn't notice it at all, he wouldn't believe half a word. Hearing a juror's words, Sheila was stunned. She had never thought about this problem. Yes, if someone like her who didn't have much contact with Mr. Winda could notice the problem, how could Madame Tussaud, who had always been secretly in love with Mr. Winda, not notice it? Could it be that Madame Tussaud really noticed it? She just didn't say it out loud. This idea surprised Sheila. She always thought that she was the only one who knew the secret, but it turned out that Madame Tussaud also knew it. Take us to the fake. He has harmed so many people. It's time to pay back his debt. Greed's eyes flashed with a bloodthirsty light. Sheila obediently stepped forward to lead the way. She was now in a difficult situation. If these people didn't defeat the fake Master Winda today and save her and Madame Tussaud, Master would only know that she betrayed him. She was afraid that she wouldn't be allowed to live. She didn't want to die like the maid who was sucked dry of blood. With Sheila leading the way, they were directly taken to the door of Winda's study. At this time, the fake Winda would be reading in the study. As for whether he was really reading or not, no one knew. Sheila took them to the door and ran to find Madame Tussaud. She wanted to take advantage of the fact that they were fighting to escape with Madame Tussaud. A juror and the others had already noticed Sheila's escape, but they didn't care. They were here to catch the stowaways. As for whether a maid wanted to escape or not, it had nothing to do with them. The door of the study was tightly closed. A juror and Feng Wu exchanged a look, indicating that she should be careful. Feng Wu nodded. Greed took the lead and opened the door and went directly into the study. When he opened the door, he saw Winda sitting behind the desk with a book in his hand. Who are you? Why did you break into my manor? When the fake Wanda saw that someone had broken in, he immediately put down his book and a touch of vigilance appeared on his face. Your manner? How come I didn't know that Shura people can have real estate in the human world? Greed laughed twice as if he had heard a joke. How could you know? The fake Wanda was shocked. He had been perfectly hiding for so long. How could he be discovered? Haven't you been to the cave recently? Don't you know that your blood pool has been discovered? If Shura people wanted to live in the human world, they had to bathe in the blood of virgins every once in a while. The blood of virgins was a great tonic for Shura, allowing Shura to stay in the human world for a longer period of time. When the fake Wanda heard them talking about the cave, he knew that his identity was really exposed. It had been 3 years, and he had only been catching the civilian girls in the small villages because he was afraid of attracting the attention of the city lord. He didn't expect that he would still be discovered. If he had known, he wouldn't have been catching people in the vicinity of Frost City. He should have gone to other cities to find more virgins. Fortunately, Greed didn't know what he was thinking. Otherwise, he wouldn't even bother to talk nonsense and would directly start fighting. The fake Wanda's face was livid. I know that the two of you are here to investigate the truth of Marlene's case. How much money can Clara give you? I will give you 10 times. As long as you don't know about this, money is not a problem. Chapter 80. The fake Wanda still recognized the identity of Ajur and Fengwu. Although he had only met them once, he had only met them for a few days. It would take some time for him to forget them. Is it really okay to bribe us like this in front of the Star General? Ajur said as if it was unintentional. Star General, you are from the Star Hall. The fake Wanda turned pale with fright. He thought that it was just a busybody or an adventurer who had accepted a mission. He didn't expect that one of the 3 people in front of him was actually from the Star Hall. You finally thought of it, Ajur said gloatingly from the side. Damn it, why would someone from the Star Hall come here? The fake Wanda's face was ashen. It was obvious that meeting someone from the Star Hall was not a good thing for him. Show me the truth. Show me. Just when the fake Wanda thought that he had some confidence in killing all 3 of them, a mirror suddenly appeared in Tan Lang's hand. This mirror was the dressing mirror that Tan Lang never left his side. This mirror was silver in color. It was inlaid with a few beautiful gems, and the handle had exquisite and beautiful carvings. When Tan Lang used the mirror to shine on the fake Wanda suddenly screamed. His voice was full of fear and resentment. The fake Wanda's skin began to show signs of melting under the golden light emitted by the mirror. The fake Wanda screamed continuously. After a few minutes, the skin that belonged to Wanda finally turned into smoke and disappeared from this world. The Shura clan really specializes in handsome men and beautiful women. This face is much more handsome than Wanda's skin. It was also the first time that Ajur saw a real Shura. The legends about the Shura clan were all about how beautiful and handsome they were, and how cruel and bloodthirsty they were. He had seen how cruel and bloodthirsty they were, and he had also seen how handsome the Shura clan was. Although I don't know what your name is, the human world is not a place where the Shura clan should stay. Come with me. Tan Lang held the mirror handle, and when he spoke, he was guarding against the other party's counterattack. Come with you. In your dreams. I want to see how powerful the Star Hall's Star Generals are, and whether or not they can catch me. Without the human skin draped over his body, the Shura who was impersonating Wanda unleashed all of his power. Blood and chi filled the entire study room, and within the blood and chi, there was an unconcealable killing intent. The blood chi in the room was getting thicker and thicker. Fengwu and the other two's vision turned into a blood-red color. They couldn't see anything else. Kill. Blood soul kill. The blood mist that filled the sky turned into blood men. These blood men held swords made of blood and rushed towards Greed and the others. The bloody men had no thoughts and no sense of pain. They were just puppets with only killing in their hearts. Ha 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 ha. Let's see how you're going to break this blood soul. The Shura stood to the side with a smug look on his face. He seemed to be very confident in the blood soul he had conjured. It's actually the blood soul kill. Unfortunately, you met me. Greed smiled coldly and dodged the blood soul's attack. Fengwu and Ajur were also attacking the blood soul. This blood soul was made of blood, and couldn't have a physical form. Therefore, Ajur and the others' attacks were destined to be ineffective. Fengwu used her small sword to slash at the blood soul. Although the blood soul scattered, it quickly gathered together and continued to attack. Ajur's magic attacks were also not very useful. Although he could make the blood soul's color fade a little, he still needed to attack a few times before he could destroy the blood soul. Purification, holy light illumination. Following Greed's incantation, the silver in his hand once again shot out a silver light. Under the illumination of this silver light, the blood souls in the room disappeared. That mirror can actually purify the blood soul. The Shura looked at Greed in disbelief. His gaze was as if he couldn't wait to snatch the mirror from Greed's hand and smash it into pieces. Binding curse, imprison him. Greed put away the mirror in his hand and formed a seal with both hands. Rays of red light drilled out from the ground and began to wrap around the Shura. Very quickly, the light turned into a cage and trapped the Shura inside. The Shura kept using his bare hands to slap the cage made of light, but he didn't succeed. Although the Shura couldn't break the cage in one hit, the cage kept shaking as if it would shatter in the next second. In order to stabilize this magic, Greed began to form seals with both hands. The cage that imprisoned the Shura became smaller and smaller, and the Shura's struggles became weaker and weaker. "No, you guys let him go." As a terrified voice entered his ears, Greed felt a pain in his back. Naturally, the magic was interrupted and he couldn't continue. The imprisoned Shura finally broke free from the magic cage. "Dusha." The Shura affectionately called out his lover's name. "Hurry up and leave. Don't let them catch you. Hurry up and leave." After Madame Dusha stabbed Greed in the back, she flew over and tightly held onto Fengwu and Ajur. She only wanted to fight for a chance for her beloved to escape. "I will come back for you, Dusha." The Shura took one last look at Madame Dusha and flew out the window. "Don't even think about leaving." Greed, who had already been stabbed, was very glad that Madame Dusha was just an ordinary woman. She didn't practice dochi and didn't know any magic. If she did, her chest would have been pierced and she wouldn't be able to keep her life. Because Dusha didn't have any strength, although she stabbed Greed, she didn't injure his vitals. It was only a flesh wound. Greed wouldn't let that despicable Shura go just because of a flesh wound. With a loud shout, Greed turned into a ray of light and chased after the Shura. "Xiao Wu, look after this woman." Ajur directly kicked Madame Tussauds chest, knocking her to the ground. Then he turned into a fiery red beam of light and chased after the two of them. "Don't hurt him. Don't." Madame Dusha fell to the ground in pain and shouted out the window. "Madam, don't be like this. That person isn't Master Winda. He's a monster." Sierra had followed behind Dusha. The way Dusha had attacked people with her sword was too crazy, so she didn't dare to get close. Now that Dusha had been subdued, she rushed over to support her. "No, he's not a monster. He's a man who loves me deeply. He did so many things for me. I can't just ignore him." Dusha pushed Sheila away and screamed in pain. "Madam, could it be that you already knew he was?" Sheila exclaimed in disbelief. She was still thinking about how to take her kind madam away from the claws of that demon. She didn't expect her madam to know all this time. Moreover, she was willing to be with that demon. In that case, wasn't it a joke that she wanted to protect her madam and take her away? It turned out that she knew everything. Chapter 81. Sierra looked at her gentle and beautiful madam in shock. It was hard to imagine how her madam, who usually couldn't even bear to hurt small animals, would make up her mind to be with a murderer. She suddenly realized that perhaps she had never understood her madam. She had always imagined her madam to be a weak little woman, but the truth told her that it was not the case at all. "Yes, I already knew that he wasn't Winda. I didn't know at first, but later, as we got together, I gradually realized that they were not the same person. He also knew that I found out that he was a fake Winda, but he didn't kill me. Instead, he was deeply in love with me. In order to be with me, he killed a lot of people, even Winda. He really loves me. I can't find anyone else in this world who loves me as much as he does. But he is a bad person. He is a murderer." Sierra shouted. This was the first time she had shouted at her madam. What does it matter? He loves me so much. Everything he did was for love. We just love each other. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with us? Love is innocent. Dusha behaved like a woman who was willing to sacrifice everything for love. For her love, she was willing to sacrifice everything. You are wrong. Your love is too selfish. Such a selfish love really tarnishes the word love. Pierre was followed by the city's army. A large group of soldiers rushed into the manor, and the fallen Dusha and maid Sierra were quickly surrounded. Xiaowu, sorry for being late. Pierre just coldly looked at the master and maid on the ground. His eyes were cold, and then turned to look at Fengwu. His eyes were as warm as spring. Yes. Fengwu nodded and then walked to Dusha. Wenda asked me to tell you that the thing he regretted most in his life was saving you. Wenda is already dead. Don't play tricks here. Dusha was shocked at first. Then she stared at Fengwu and shouted. She thought that Fengwu was deliberately scaring her. Fengwu was not in a good mood to scare Dusha. What she said was true. Wenda's soul had been wandering around the manor. Do you want to see him? Fengwu sees that she does not believe, and feels that it is necessary to prove his words. How could she prove it? Of course, it was to let the other party see Wenda's undead with their own eyes. However, she really didn't know how to see the undead. If this madam really wants to see him, I have a way. An old man in a white magic robe appeared among the soldiers. This old man was none other than the necromancer who served the city lord's mansion. The old man took out a bottle of potion from his interspatial ring and sprayed it at the eyes of the two girls. Sheila and Dusha were ordinary people. How could they hide from a magician? After being sprayed by the unknown potion, the world in their eyes was still the same world, but they could see that not far from them, there was a soul covered in blood. This soul was very familiar. It was Wenda's soul. From his soul, one could see how miserable his death was. He was covered in blood, flowing from head to toe. His clothes seemed to be soaked in blood. His eyes were wide open, and he looked very terrible. Ghost! Ghost! Dusha and Sheila screamed in fear. Their faces were pale and their bodies were trembling. Mr. Wenda, is it really you? It was not only Dusha and Sheila who sprayed the potion, but also Pierre. Pierre voluntarily sprayed the potion. He wanted to see Mr. Wenda, a very good elder in his memory. Tonight's action, Tanlang naturally told the city lord's mansion. The city lord's mansion sent soldiers, mages, and swordmasters to help Tanlang. The city lord had sent out many masters, and Greedy Wolf had also used a special method to tell what had happened in the manor to the people guarding outside. After Greedy Wolf and Ajur chased out, the people sent by the city lord naturally rushed in to capture the woman who dared to protect the Shura and hurt the Greedy Wolf star. Pierre, it's been a long time. Is my Clara all right? Wenda was a gentleman. What he was most worried about was his daughter. As an undead, he knew that his daughter was imprisoned, but he couldn't do anything about it. He could only be trapped in this manner, unable to take a single step out. Clara is all right. Now that the identity of the Shura has been proven, Clara will be released soon. Pierre saw that the elder who had always been good to him had become like this. How could he not be sad? He didn't want Wenda to see his sadness, so he could only try his best to hide it carefully. Are you really brother Wenda? Dusha couldn't believe it. She always knew that Wenda was dead, but she never dreamed that there would be such a thing as a soul after death. Moreover, Wenda's soul had never left. Dusha, if I could turn back time, I really wouldn't want to have anything to do with you. Never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that my family's tragedy would actually be because of you. Wenda's soul laughed bitterly. That bitter laugh made one's heart ache. No, it's not because of me. It has nothing to do with me. Dusha shook her head desperately. She was panicked and scared. Sheila had been hiding behind Dusha, not daring to say a word. She had already been scared silly. It's not you. You still don't want to admit it. If you didn't tell the Shura that Marlene might have discovered something, the Shura wouldn't have killed Marlene. You didn't want to live with my daughter, and you were afraid that she would find out the truth and disturb your happiness, so you complained to the Shura from time to time. That's why the Shura wanted to kill my daughter and framed her with Marlene's matter. I saw all this clearly. You really disappointed me. I really shouldn't have saved you. I led the wolf into the house. I harmed Marlene, Clara, and myself. When Da's soul shouted loudly, his face full of blood looked even more frightening. No, I didn't ask him to kill anyone. That's not what I want. My wish is very simple. I just want to live a happy life with the people who love me. Why can't anyone fulfill such a simple wish? Why? Dusha cried. Her voice was full of complaints about the unfairness of fate and endless grievances. Dusha's complaints and cries made everyone present once again see this woman's selfishness and coldness. When Day had saved her family, but she turned around and caused her benefactor's family to be ruined. Now, she was actually here crying and asking why others didn't help her. Chapter 82. Who did she think she was? The world revolved around her. If she wanted happiness, others would have to suffer. She was simply a lunatic. He really didn't know how the Shura liked such a woman. Where's Xiaowu? Why did she disappear? Pierre was shocked when he suddenly realized that Fengwu had disappeared. That little girl just left. She should have gone after the Shura. The old magician had seen Fengwu leave, but he hadn't said anything at that time. What? Not to mention the chaos caused by Fengwu's departure, Fengwu was currently using her Qinggong to chase after the Shura. A Jur and greedy wolf had turned into streams of light and soared into the sky. Fengwu was naturally unable to use magic as a trash. The only thing she could use was her Qinggong. Naturally, it was impossible for her to run as fast as Greedy Wolf and the others with Qinggong. She had asked the nearby flowers and grass along the way so that she didn't lose them. As she chased, she left Frost City and ran into a deep mountain. This mountain was some distance away from Frost City. Fengwu chased for an hour before arriving at this place. Because of the plants leading the way, Fengwu didn't go to the wrong place along the way. When Fengwu arrived at this mountain, a Jur and Greedy Wolf were fighting fiercely on the other side of the mountain. The result of the two fighting against one was naturally needless to say. The evil Shura was chained up by Greedy Wolf and was prepared to be escorted back to the arbitration tribunal the next morning for arbitration. Fengwu still didn't know about this. She was very busy now. It turned out that when Fengwu chased after a Jur and Greedy Wolf, she actually found a hot spring. The hot spring water made Fengwu's eyes light up. It was as if she had returned to Mount Yuehua. There was also such a hot spring on Mount Yuehua. At that time, she would soak in the hot spring every winter. The hot spring on Mount Yuehua was not an ordinary hot spring. Fengwu's master had spent a lot of effort to plant herbs near the hot spring and guide the medicinal power into the hot spring. Soaking in the hot spring could not only eliminate fatigue, but also strengthen the body and prolong life. Now that she finally saw a hot spring in another world, Fengwu felt as if she had returned to Mount Yuehua. She carefully looked around and found that no one was around. Fengwu girl took off her dress, tied her hair up, and then went into the water naked. It's so comfortable. Fengwu's expressionless face flushed, making her look even cuter. The little girl completely forgot about a Jur and Greedy Wolf. She didn't think that Fengwu chased after them because she was worried about them. Fengwu always knew that a Jur and Greedy Wolf were very strong, so she wasn't worried. She chased after them because she didn't want to stay with Dusa and Sheila. Fengwu rarely hated someone, and Dusa and Sheila just happened to annoy Fengwu. Because she hated them, she didn't want to stay with them. That was why she went to find a Jur and Greedy Wolf. Now that she found another hot spring that was very similar to the one on Mount Yuehua, the girl immediately put aside her original plan of finding a Jur. What she wanted to do the most now was to soak in the hot spring. Soaking in the hot spring, Fengwu began to miss home. She missed her master. She missed the cute animals on Mount Yuehua. She missed the grass and trees on Mount Yuehua. As she thought about it, her eyes turned red. She forced back the tears in her eyes. She didn't want to cry. Her master said that she was a strong girl and an excellent swordswoman. There was no need for tears in a swordsman's world. Thinking about her master's words, Fengwu buried her head in the water and let the hot spring cover her head. She soaked in the water and held her breath. She stayed in the water for 10 minutes before she poked her head out of the water. But when she poked her head out, Fengwu froze. There was another person in front of her, someone she didn't know. I didn't know there was someone here. I'm sorry, I'll leave now. The young man wanted to take a good bath, but he didn't expect to see someone in the water. It was a little girl. The young man's face turned red. Although there were many girls who liked him, he had never been close to any of them. Now that he was bathing with a girl he didn't know, the young man was embarrassed. The young man's white face was red. He didn't know if it was because he was shy or because he was soaking in the hot spring. He walked to the edge of the hot spring in a panic. Just as he was about to put on his clothes, he realized that the girl was staring at him without blinking. Can you turn around or close your eyes? I need to put on my clothes." If the girl's eyes weren't as clean as the holy spring water, the young man would have thought that he had met a female pervert. Fengwu stared at the young man for a while. He didn't know what she was thinking. Suddenly, she raised her hand and splashed a large amount of water at the young man. The young man reflexively covered his eyes with his hands. At this moment, Fengwu directly activated her internal energy and jumped out of the water. With a wave of her small hand, the clothes on the shore automatically flew over and covered Fengwu's body. By the time the young man put down his hand, Fengwu had already put on her clothes and flew to the shore. "You can continue soaking. I'm done." The girl looked at the young man who was still soaking in the water with half of his chest exposed. The young man's body seemed to emit a pure light under the moonlight. His skin was faintly red because he had soaked in the hot spring. Coupled with the young man's beautiful appearance, it was simply tempting to commit a crime. Thank you." The young man was at a loss. It seemed that it was the first time he had encountered such a situation. Under normal circumstances, it would be the boys who took the initiative to retreat in such a situation. However, today, the girl gave in to him. This feeling was really strange. Is there anything else? The young man thought that the black-haired girl in front of him would leave after speaking. Bai Jing and the others were in an awkward situation. However, it seemed that he was the only one who felt awkward. To the young man's surprise, Fengwu did not leave after saying those words. Instead, she walked up to him and stared unblinkingly at the young man who was still half submerged in the water with her large, black eyes. "Please marry me." The girl looked at the young man in front of her with a serious face. What she said made the young man stunned. If the girl looked at him with a shy or admiring face and said these words, he would think that the girl had fallen in love with him at first sight. However, the girl in front of him didn't look shy, nervous, or afraid of being rejected. Her eyes were very calm and serious. If it wasn't for her serious eyes, he would really think that he was being teased. Bang! With a sound, a fiery red figure fell directly from the sky and broke the trunk of a tree. Chapter 83. I didn't expect Xiao Wu to be so bold. When Tan Lang and Ajur flew over with the Shura, they sensed Fengwu's presence. When they descended, they heard Fengwu's shocking words. This caused Ajur to fall from the sky. If there wasn't a thick layer of snow on the ground, he would probably be the first unlucky person to fail and fall to his death. "Sorry, I'm not thinking about marriage right now." The young man thought for a while about how to refuse without hurting her, but in the end, he still said it. "Oh." Fengwu nodded and didn't say anything else. "That's it? Don't you need to say anything more, girl?" Tan Lang thought to himself in exasperation. However, Xiao Wu's taste was really good. The young man in front of her wasn't an ordinary person. Who knew how many noble ladies wanted to do something with the young man in front of them, but none of them succeeded. "Go, Xiao Wu. Brother Tan Lang supports you. You must take him down." "Aya, it seems like you came at the wrong time." Tan Lang ignored Ajur, who just got up from the snow. He pretended that he had just passed by and walked over with a sneaky smile. "Senior Tan Lang." The young man already knew who it was, but he didn't say it out loud because he didn't want things to get weirder. He didn't expect things to develop in an even weirder direction. "You know this guy?" Ajur looked at the young man who was still soaking in the water with an unfriendly expression. The more he looked, the more he felt like his sister was being kidnapped by a pretty boy. "He's your senior, Notre Dame du Starlight's fifth-year chief student, Ming Shi." Tan Lang looked at the dance and then looked at Ming Shi. His smile was very annoying. Why is Ming Shi Senior here? Although Ajur was angry that this guy seduced Fengwu, he didn't rush up to challenge the fifth-year student. Although he didn't rush up to challenge him, His tone wasn't very nice. "Can you let me get up and get dressed first?" Mingxi said somewhat helplessly. He had never been so embarrassed in his life. The first time he was proposed to by a girl he didn't know, he was seen by his senior. At the same time, he was seen by a very unfriendly junior. He was almost certain that as long as he left this place, the scene of him being proposed to would definitely spread to every corner of the Star Hall. As for whether the Notre Dame du Starlight would be publicized to everyone at the same time, it would depend on whether this junior brother in front of him had a big mouth or not. Ajur glared at him unkindly. He didn't have any intention of turning around or closing his eyes. Tan Lang crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking like he didn't want him to get dressed. The girl who proposed to him was staring at him with a pair of big black and white eyes. He didn't know if she heard what he said. In order to not let himself be in such an awkward position, Mingxi learned from Fengwu. He waved his hand, and a large amount of water splashed towards the three people. Ajur and Tan Lang didn't expect this move and were immediately drenched in water. However, Fengwu's reaction was unexpectedly fast. She directly took a few steps back and wasn't splashed by the water. "You despicable guy. It's ice and snow, and you're splashing water on us." Ajur was so angry that he felt like his hair was about to smoke. He wiped the water off his head and wanted to rush over and scold him. However, when he looked forward, he saw that the guy who was supposed to be in the water was already standing neatly not far away from the three of them. The young man was wearing a blue and white robe. He stood under the moonlight with a smile on his face. His short golden hair emitted a soft glow under the moonlight. His whole person seemed to be surrounded by the moonlight, looking sacred and inviolable. Even Ajur, who was a man, had to admit that Fengwu's taste was really good. This senior brother named Mingxi in front of him was as beautiful as the moon goddess. His beauty wasn't like Tan Lang's. It was so beautiful that it was hard to tell his gender. No one would mistake Mingxi's gender. Although he was as beautiful as the moonlight, no one would mistake his gender. "I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it when we return to the academy." After saying that, a golden light rushed into the sky and disappeared. If it wasn't for the flying speed of the Imperial Sky technique that revealed his helplessness, people would really think that he had something to do and left first. As soon as Mingxi left, Ajur flicked Fengwu's forehead. "You actually proposed to a man? You're still so young. Why are you proposing to such a young girl?" Fengwu covered her forehead with grievance. "I'm not young anymore. I'm already the mother of a baby." "That makes sense. I actually have nothing to say." This was a sentence that directly appeared in Ajur's mind. Cough, Xiao Wu, you can't judge a person by his appearance. You have to look at his inner self, okay? What if he's a bad person? Wouldn't your life be ruined? You have to know that a woman's marriage is like a second reincarnation. If you don't choose the right husband, you'll cry for the rest of your life. Tan Lang also talked about life with Fengwu in the manner of a life mentor. Is Senior Mingxi a bad person? Fengwu blinked and asked. No. Although she wanted to say yes, that guy seemed to be a good husband candidate. He didn't smoke, gamble, or play with women. He was simply one of the best. Then it proves that Xiao Wu didn't choose the wrong one. Fengwu said to Tan Lang seriously. Tan Lang was speechless. For the first time, he, Tan Lang, was unable to say a word. Fengwu and Ajur returned to Pierre's small hotel. The next day, the two, together with Tan Lang, brought the Shura to submit the mission. After confirming that the mission was completed, Clara was also acquitted and successfully reunited with Pierre. Mr. Wenda was sent to reincarnate by the necromancer, and Liddy chose the path of spiritual cultivation. The necromancer of the city lord's mansion was very good. After asking Liddy if she was willing to follow him, although Liddy refused in the end, the necromancer was not angry. Instead, he told Liddy the method of spiritual cultivation so that she could practice it on her own. However, dark necromancers liked Liddy because her soul purity was high enough, and she was an undead without a master. In the end, when they left Frost City, Liddy signed an equal contract with Fengwu. Fengwu had always been simple-minded and would not use the undead to do bad things, while Liddy did not like to be restrained. Although the two had signed a contract, it did not restrict each other in any way. The matter of Frost City was settled. Fengwu and Ajur had no interest in the sacred beast egg or the tomb of the ancient magician. The two just wanted to return to Central City as soon as possible. When they returned to Central City this time, 3 people and 1 spirit traveled together. Because Liddy had signed a contract with Fengwu, she could already enter Fengwu's spiritual space. Naturally, she did not need to pay. The teleportation fee for Fengwu and Ajur was paid by Tanlang. Just like Ajur said, this guy was so poor that he only had money left. Chapter 84. After returning to the Central City, Tanlang went straight to the Astral Hall to submit the quest while Ajur and Fengwu went to the Adventurers Guild to submit the quest item and collect the money. The quest this time was very troublesome and involved the ferocious Shurass. However, they only received 700 gold coins. When the two returned to the school, they looked at the rankings and realized that they didn't even make it into the top 10. For the mysterious prize that their teacher mentioned, these students worked very hard. The first place was the female magus named Zicheng. She had already earned tens of thousands of gold coins. Her speed of earning money was definitely the fastest among all of them. The second place was Irene. She also earned tens of thousands of gold coins, but she still couldn't compare to Zicheng. The third place to the 10th place only earned thousands of gold coins, not even 10,000. Ajur turned to Fengwu and sighed. The competition was fierce. The Fengwu girl was still expressionless. Ajur felt that it was boring. The two waved goodbye and returned to their own dorms. When they returned to the dorm, they found that the others were not there. Fengwu and Ajur decided to rest for a few days before continuing the quest. They were not interested in the reward for first place. They just wanted to complete the quest. When the other 3 people in the dorm came back, they found that Fengwu had returned. Silda and Anika asked Fengwu about what happened to her in the past few days. Only Rika seemed uninterested. She didn't even talk to Fengwu. Fengwu was not a talkative person, so she didn't mind Rika's cold treatment. After Rika went upstairs, Anika awkwardly apologized to Fengwu. Xiaowu, don't mind her. Rika hasn't been earning money well recently, so she's not in a good mood. She didn't mean to ignore you. Because they were both mages and noble ladies, Rika and Rika had always had a good relationship. That was why she apologized on Rika's behalf. Oh, Fengwu just nodded. I don't mind. Rika carefully stared at Fengwu, wanting to see if she was lying. But after staring for a long time, Fengwu still had that stoic face, and she couldn't see any emotions at all. In the end, Rika decisively gave up. Rika is really strange. Water magicians are clearly the most profitable profession, but her work has never been successful. I really don't understand what she's trying to do. Selder had always been a straightforward person, so he couldn't stand Rika's spoiled temper. She's just not used to it yet. Annika found an excuse for Rika. Not used to it. What's there to not used to it? She's not the only noble lady in the entire school. Everyone else is doing well, and she's the only one who can't put down her airs. Does she think she's a princess? Every time her work doesn't go well, she puts on a sour face in the dorm, and when she's outside, she acts like she's been wronged. Do you know? One day, one of my teammates even asked me if someone in our dorm was bullying Rika. At that time, I was so angry. It was so annoying. Selder's personality had always been carefree. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't stand it, he wouldn't have said that. Rika didn't do it on purpose. Annika didn't know what to say. She also knew that Rika and Selder's relationship had always been superficial. If she didn't do it on purpose, then I really don't know if someone would come running to teach me a lesson and accuse me of trying to murder her. Xiaowu, you have to be more careful in the future. Don't fall into someone's trap. In short, someone doesn't even need to say a word to harm others. Just a look is enough to make them suffer. Selder had been feeling depressed for a long time. Usually, only the 3 of them were in the dorm, and Annika and Rika had a good relationship. Even if she was an idiot, she wouldn't talk to Annika about this. Now that Fengwu was back, Selder finally felt like she had found an ally. Annika looked at the second floor and sighed. Fortunately, Rika didn't hear it. Otherwise, there might have been a big fight. The next day, Fengwu woke up and went to the teacher to cancel her leave for class. Mr. James asked her about her experience in accepting missions during her leave. Fengwu honestly recounted everything that had happened in the past few days. Fengwu wasn't a qualified storyteller. She only knew how to tell the story in detail and didn't use any adjectives. Although Fengwu didn't use any fancy words, just by hearing the word Shura, it was obvious that the mission Fengwu did this time wasn't simple. Moreover, she even met one of the 28 star generals, the Greedy Wolf Star. The past few days were really quite exciting. After successfully canceling her leave for class, Fengwu returned to class. Although the students in the class were busy earning money and doing missions, they had to be present during class every day. Except for those who went out for missions, everyone in the class was present. The first lesson was general history of the mainland. This kind of history class was the easiest for students to fall asleep. More than half of the students in the class were about to fall asleep. Fengwu, on the other hand, was staring at the blackboard in high spirits and didn't move at all. She was so serious that even the teacher was moved. There was a student in this school who respected history so much. What a good kid. When class finally ended, Fengwu rubbed her eyes. This class wasn't fun at all. It was so tiring. Hey, was general history of the continent interesting? You listened so seriously. A boy with green buzz cut moved his chair next to Fengwu and asked curiously, "It wasn't interesting." Fengwu answered seriously, "Then why did you listen so seriously?" The boy rolled his eyes. "Shouldn't I pay attention during class?" Fengwu said. This was what the ajur said. He told her what she should do during class, such as paying attention and studying. You're right." The boy was speechless. He scratched his head and returned to his seat. After 2 classes, Fengwu took her textbook and left the classroom. However, when she passed by a small road with less people, she saw a scene. "Senior, this is my sincerity. Please accept it." A young girl with a red face held a pink letter and handed it to the boy with both hands. The boy also blushed and accepted the letter with embarrassment. The girl covered her face and ran away shyly. That senior is really lucky. Why haven't I received a girl's love letter before? A sigh sounded behind Fengwu. Fengwu turned around and recognized that it was her classmate. Moreover, this was the boy who spoke to her just now. What is a love letter? Fengwu tilted her head. It sounded very mysterious. If the boy standing behind Fengwu could hear her thoughts, he would definitely tell her that she was thinking too much. The so-called love letter is a confession letter. It's something to convey your feelings to the person you like. Rubbing his chin, the boy pondered for a moment and explained. Chapter 85. Fengwu girl didn't understand what a confession was. What's a confession? In Fengwu's world, people were more reserved. Words like confession had never appeared in that world before. It's to tell your feelings to the person you like. That's called a confession. The youth was a little helpless. How could there be someone who didn't know such a simple thing? If it wasn't for the innocent and serious look on the girl's face, he really would have thought that he had been played. Do you have to write a love letter to express your feelings? Fengwu thought of Ming Shi. Was it because she didn't write a love letter to him that he didn't want to accept her? The youth was stumped by this question. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Not necessarily, but girls are usually more shy. The most common way to express their feelings is to write a love letter." Fengwu nodded, indicating that she understood. She began to reflect on herself. Was the reason why Senior Ming Shi didn't accept her because she wasn't reserved enough? Fengwu, who had never pursued a man before, couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she racked her brains. Right? I'm Imogue. We'll be friends from now on. If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. The green-haired youth laughed heartily. I'm Fengwu. Fengwu introduced herself. I know. Fengwu lives in the same dorm as that tomboy Silda. Silda already told us. Imogue and Silda were on good terms. I'll ask you again, Fengwu suddenly said. Ask what? Imogue couldn't wrap his head around it. Didn't you say that I can ask you if I have any questions in the future? Fengwu looked at him pitifully. The word liar was clearly written on her originally expressionless face. You're talking about this? Sure, I welcome you to ask me anytime. Imogue hurriedly nodded. He was afraid that the little girl in front of him would suddenly burst into tears. If that happened, he would have committed a great sin. Ever since he was young, He had never had the experience of making a girl cry. His older sister often said that a man who could make a woman cry would never be able to marry a wife in this lifetime. Imogue thought that he was a good young man and would definitely not have to worry about a wife in the future. But now that a young girl was about to cry because of him, the young man panicked. "You must not cry," the young man advised. "As long as you don't cry, even if you become 100,000 wise, I will answer you." "I'm not crying." Fengwu blinked her eyes. Other than her eyes being a little red, she didn't seem to have any tears. Seeing that Fengwu wasn't crying, Imogue finally let out a sigh of relief. The two chatted for a bit longer before parting ways. Imogue's team still had a mission to complete, so unlike Fengwu and Ajur, they weren't on vacation. After Imogue left, Fengwu walked back to the dormitory alone. She happened to bump into Ajur, who had also just finished class. Ajur saw Fengwu and naturally raised his hand to greet her. "Xiaowu, look at how listless you are. Who bullied you?" He asked this jokingly. He didn't believe that the savage girl would be bullied by anyone. "No one bullied me. I was thinking about something." Fengwu shook her head. "What I want to ask is, what are you thinking about?" Ajur was really curious now. In his eyes, the Fengwu girl was a girl who couldn't be any more innocent. Did this girl also reach the age of being troubled? "Do you know how to write a love letter?" Fengwu decided to ask her friend for help at a time like this. "A love letter? Who are you writing it to?" Ajur was shocked. He couldn't believe that this girl was already at the age of writing a love letter. "Senior Ming Shi," Fengwu said seriously. "You really want to marry him?" Ajur didn't expect that Fengwu still hadn't given up. After being rejected by Ming Shi in front of everyone, Fengwu didn't appear to be sad. He thought that the girl didn't care at all. Who knew that it wasn't that she didn't care, but that she didn't take the rejection to heart at all. She even planned to continue working hard. "I've always been serious." Fengwu wasn't happy. She felt that her character was being doubted. Master had said that no matter what she did, she had to do it seriously. She had always been obedient. How could she not be serious? "Okay, I said the wrong thing. Our Xiaowu has always been a serious and good child." Although these words don't sound good, I still have to tell you that Mingxi's status as a student is very unusual. It's basically impossible for the two of you to be together. It's better to give up on him. You see, there are so many handsome men in our school. I'm sure you can quickly find someone to your liking. Ajur really said this for the sake of Fengwu. Fengwu's status and Ming Shi's status really didn't have much of a possibility, unless Ming Shi loved her to the point that he couldn't be without her. But as far as he knew, Ming Shi wasn't a man who would go crazy for love. Although he seemed to smile warmly at everyone and always had a good temper, in fact, his heart wasn't easy to open to people. He really didn't want Fengwu to be hurt. In his eyes, Fengwu was a rare good girl. The world in her eyes was very clean. Looking into her eyes, it was like looking at a pure land that people couldn't bear to destroy. "I want him to be the baby's father," Fengwu said firmly. "Does it have to be him?" Ajur asked a little helplessly.
"Yes."
"All right then. If there comes a day when you can't hold on, you can always lean on my shoulder." Ajur also knew that although Fengwu was naive to the point that she didn't have common sense, she had her own persistence. Once she made a decision, it wouldn't be so easy to change it. It seemed that he had to let her be rejected a few more times. Then, perhaps Fengwu would have no choice but to give up. "How do I write a love letter?" Fengwu didn't forget that she was troubled by this question. The corner of Ajur's mouth twitched. He tried hard to recall the contents of the love letters he had received. After thinking for a while, he organized his words and said, "Wait a minute. I'll go and see if I can find a sample of a love letter." Ajur just remembered that he had never received a love letter from a girl. It wasn't that no one wrote to him, but that he never read love letters. Now, Fengwu asked him how to write a love letter. How would he know? After asking Fengwu to wait for Ingju, Ajur quickly ran to find his roommate, the playboy, who was said to receive an average of 30 love letters a day. "You're back. Do you want to have dinner together?" Luffy had just changed into a luxurious magic robe and was combing his hair. Seeing that Ajur had returned, he habitually asked, "What is it? Where's the love letter? Do you have any love letters? Just give me one." A juror pulled the comb out of Luffy's hand and asked impolitely, "Huh, what do you want a love letter for? 2 days ago, so many girls sent you love letters, but you didn't want them. Now you're asking me for them? I don't like men." Luffy was scared and took a few steps back. He was a straight man. He couldn't be misunderstood as having that kind of hobby. Chapter 86. Don't worry. Even if all the women in the world died, this young master wouldn't fall for a show-off like you. A juror glared at him disdainfully. Luffy was about to say something when a knock came from the door. A juror went to open the door and saw a slightly chubby girl standing outside. The girl looked like a new student. She was wearing a mage's uniform and had freckles on her face. Her eyes were a little small and her mouth was a little big. In short, she didn't look like a beautiful girl at all. What's the matter? She was most likely looking for a show-off Luffy. Ever since school started, almost every day, there would be girls coming to Luffy's dormitory to give him love letters, food, or to ask for a date. Every day, the same thing would happen. Luffy, this gigolo, was proud of it, which made the other people in his dormitory want to beat him up. A juror, please accept my kind intentions. The girl blushed as she handed over the love letter that she had edited more than 10 times with her hands. Love letter. A juror wanted to refuse, but when he thought of Fengwu who was still waiting for him, he grabbed the love letter in his hand. The originally clean and tidy envelope was wrinkled. However, the girl didn't care about whether the love letter was wrinkled or not. She was now smashed by happiness. A juror actually accepted her love letter, accepted her love letter, accepted her love letter. This sentence kept repeating endlessly. A juror only wanted the love letter. Once he got the love letter, he closed the door. With a bang, the door was shut tight. The girl who was still in a daze was shut outside. No way, you actually accepted the love letter. Could it be that you like this type? It was too shocking. This guy had broken the hearts of many girls. The number of love letters that a juror had written was definitely more than his. The reason why there were fewer people looking for him was because this guy didn't have any manners. He often said whatever he wanted and did things that hurt girls' hearts. After hurting so many girls' hearts, he was finally won over by a piece of fat pork. Luffy felt that there was something wrong with the way he opened his eyes today. Otherwise, how could he have seen such a strange scene? Oomph! With a disdainful snort, a juror ignored her and sat down on the sofa to start reading. A juror probably never thought that the first love letter he read in his life was because he wanted to learn how to write one. If someone had told him in the past that he would read a girl's love letter for such a reason, he would have kicked that person until he couldn't take care of himself. Dear juror, I still remember the first time we met. You were like a ball of fire that lit up my life. That day, I was being mocked by the boys, but you appeared in front of me like a god. With just a wave of your hand, those boys who were mocking me were thrown to the ground by fire magic. When all the boys were laughing at me for hurting me, you were so different. I know you're a person who cares about his heart. You're a real man. I love you so much. I love you so much that I can't pull myself away. I love you so much that the sky is falling and the earth is cracking. I am the woman who loves you the most in this world. Please accept my love. Wayne's corner of his mouth twitched as he read the letter that made him want to beat someone up. He directly burned the letter. It almost made him vomit breakfast and burn the love letter. After burning the letter, he got up, walked to the door, opened it, and closed it. After a juror left, Luffy came back to his senses. Did this guy like that piece of fat pork? Was he going to go on a date with that piece of fat pork? Luckily, a juror didn't have time to care about him. Otherwise, he would have let him have a taste of his fireball. Fengwu sat on the bench and saw a juror running over. Her eyes lit up. Do you know? Fengwu's eyes were so bright that a juror couldn't bear to look at them. Yes. When writing a love letter, you first have to write the other party's name. Then, you have to write the first time you met each other, the reason why you like the other party, and the purpose of writing the love letter. Finally, you have to write your own name. That's it. You can write it like that. A juror said with a firm expression. He was using Wayna's love letter model. Did this guy think that this was the only way to write a love letter in the world? The next day, when Imogue rushed to class early in the morning, he saw that Fengwu had gone to class earlier than him. She was sitting in her seat and writing something. Mo Gue was curious about what Fengwu was writing, so he walked over and asked her a question. Xiao Wu, what are you writing? The teacher didn't give you any homework yesterday, right? Mo Gue started to recall yesterday's class. He wondered if he had forgotten that there was homework to do. I'm writing a love letter. The teacher didn't give me any homework. Fengwu answered both of his questions. But when the two words love letter came out, the entire classroom, which had been chatting, all pricked up their ears. They wanted to hear who the love letter was for. Young lady, do you have to be so loud about writing a love letter? A juror glared at the people who were eavesdropping. Some of them finally quieted down a little. Then take your time writing. Although he really wanted to peek at the young lady's love letter, it was immoral to do so. Even though he was a little disappointed. At noon, in the student cafeteria, Mo Gue invited Fengwu to lunch. He was actually curious about who Fengwu wanted to give the love letter to. Was it someone he knew? Or was it someone from her class? In any case, Mo Gue was dying of curiosity. After lining up to get their food, the two sat down to eat. Fengwu's eating speed once again shocked Mo Gue. He had only eaten a third of his food, but Fengwu had already finished it. Most importantly, Fengwu's portion was even more than his. What kind of speed was this? Young lady, are you sure you're a girl? Aren't you a man in a girl's skin? After the young lady finished eating, she sat obediently to the side and waited for a juror to finish eating. Just then, two handsome men came down from upstairs. One of them had blonde hair and blue eyes. His expression was gentle, and he was as beautiful and gentle as the moon. The other young man had silver white hair, silver eyes, and a handsome face that looked as if it was about to freeze, causing people to feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. His entire body was filled with a kind of ascetic beauty, and just like the other golden-haired young man, he was unforgettable. Chapter 87. Look, it's student Ming Shi and Senior Skycliff. Senior Ming Shi is so beautiful. How can there be such a good-looking person in this world? A girl slumped on the table. There's also Senior Skycliff. Senior Skycliff is the man closest to becoming a sword god in 100 years. He's so amazing. Another girl said in admiration. Senior Ming Shi is the top student of the 5th grade, and Senior Skycliff is the top student of the 4th grade. Both of them are peerless powerhouses. Don't you think they're a good match when they stand together? This caused a series of screams. Mo Gue was eating when he looked up at the man who had created the terrifying sound waves. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Everyone had a different life. Why wasn't he as popular? Was it because he wasn't the top student of the 5th grade? Look, after the terrifying sound waves, someone went up to hand him a love letter. As expected, popular men were different. But why did the girl who handed him the letter look so familiar? Holy shit, isn't that Fengwu? The scene was like this. When our Fengwu girl saw Ming Shi, her eyes lit up. She didn't even notice how popular the boy she wanted to confess to was. She just rushed up with the love letter she had prepared. Fengwu girl held the love letter in her hand and walked up to the two handsome seniors, blocking their path. Senior Ming Shi, please accept it. She imitated the girl who had handed him the love letter and held it out with both hands with a serious expression. Ming Shi immediately recognized the girl in front of him as the one who had proposed to him that night. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. He thought that the girl would back down after he made things clear that day, but reality told him that he had been too naive. He didn't know whether to accept the love letter or not. If he didn't accept it, the girl would lose face in front of so many people, so he still accepted the love letter. He accepted the love letter, which caused the crowd to scream. Fortunately, Ming Shi was used to the days where he could attract screams wherever he went. No matter how loud the screams were, he didn't feel anything. But why was the girl in front of him still here? Shouldn't she have run away shyly after he received the love letter? The truth told Ming Shi that he was thinking too much. Not only did the girl not run away, but there was no sign of shyness on her face. Is there anything else? Ming Shi's gentle smile stiffened. You haven't seen it yet. Fengwu looked at Ming Shi stubbornly, with a manner of, I won't leave until you finish watching it. Was a love letter supposed to be read in person? Ming Shi suddenly felt that maybe he shouldn't have accepted the love letter in the first place. It was too late to say anything now. Chenimo wanted to open the love letter to take a look, but he found that the girl's love letter was very different from the ones he usually received. Others used aromatherapy paper and a cute pink envelope for love letters, but the Fengwu girl used an ordinary piece of paper that she usually used for homework. Looking at the size of the paper and the tear marks on it, all of these told him that this so-called love letter was written on a random piece of paper torn from some homework book. This was really the most scrupulous love letter he had ever received, the youth thought silently. What was even better was that this love letter didn't even have an envelope, only a folded piece of paper. No, it was a folded piece of homework paper. Looking at the contents inside, the first row said, Senior Ming Shi. The second row said, the first time we met was in a hot spring. The third row said, you look like my master. Please be my baby's father. The fourth row said, please marry me. The fifth row said, Fengwu. This thing was a love letter. Ming Shi suddenly felt a headache. This love letter with no format and no content was probably the shortest and most strange love letter in the history of love letters. You still haven't given me an answer? Fengwu girl reminded him with bright eyes. She had already written a love letter, so this should be reserved enough, right? Senior Ming Shi should agree to it. Sorry, I can't agree to it. The always considerate Ming Shi really didn't want to hurt a girl's heart in front of so many people, but the girl looked at him so stubbornly, it seemed that he could not give an answer. Although all of this was the girl's own choice, no matter what, he still hurt this girl in front of so many people. Ming Shi felt a little guilty and didn't know how to face the girl in front of him. The scene of the girl being heartbroken didn't happen. After the girl was rejected, all the students in the cafeteria who were eating at the same time as the aunties who were eating at the same time thought that Fengwu would cry and leave, but she didn't. The girl calmly took back the love letter Ming Shi had handed to her. Oh, she calmly responded, no sadness visible on her face. Finally, she turned around and left. She didn't cry at all, nor did she feel sad at all. She just left like that. The entire cafeteria was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Girl, are you sure you're here to confess and not to play games? Mo Gue, whose jaw almost dropped to the ground, reacted the moment Fengwu left. He stopped eating and chased after Fengwu like a gust of wind. They were classmates, so he couldn't let this innocent girl do anything stupid. Xiao Wu wait. Mo Gue used the speed of a 100-meter race to catch up. He put his hand on the girl's shoulder from behind and turned her around to comfort her. Xiao Wu, one failure is nothing. Even if Senior Ming Shi doesn't accept you, there will be other good men who will. Don't be too sad. Don't cry. He didn't even see the girl's expression before he started to comfort her. I'm not crying. Fengwu looked at Mo Gue seriously. She didn't want to be mistaken as a girl who liked to cry. Master had said that crying was the behavior of the weak. She was Master's disciple and a natural-born expert. She wouldn't cry. Yeah, she really didn't cry. Her eyes didn't even turn red. Mo Gue obediently shut up. Why is it that even though I wrote a love letter and confessed in a subtle way, he still won't accept me? Fengwu's voice was filled with questions and confusion. She had clearly done as Mo Gue said. So why was Senior Ming Shi still unwilling to accept her? The girl couldn't think of a reason, so she could only ask the youth in front of her for help. How did you write the love letter? Mo Gue had always been curious. When he saw the love letter written on the homework paper, he instantly felt like he was going to Sparta. Here, the girl didn't have any thoughts of protecting her privacy and generously handed over her love letter. You're really showing it to me? That's not too good. Although he said that, his hands didn't slow down at all as he took the love letter. When he opened it, Mo Gue instantly felt uncomfortable. This was a love letter. This was a love letter. He suddenly felt that it was completely normal for Senior Ming Shi to reject Fengwu. He believed that no one would accept such a strange love letter. Chapter 88. Who taught you to write this? This person definitely had a grudge against Fengwu. At this moment, a juror, who was eating the delicacies brought back by his roommates, suddenly sneezed. Is someone thinking of me? A juror taught me. Fengwu girl immediately betrayed her teammate. The fire magus who teamed up with you for a mission? Mo Gue, who had a good relationship with a juror, had naturally heard of him. That's him. Fengwu girl nodded. Don't write any more love letters in the future. There are many ways to pursue love. We'll try something else in the future, Imogue said after a few seconds of silence. Don't. Fengwu girl's eyes sparkled. She was full of energy again. Yes, yes. Let's go. We'll slowly study it. There's definitely a way. Imogue didn't even consider that he himself had never had a girlfriend before, and now he wanted to teach her how to pursue a boyfriend. Young man, are you sure you have a way? Regardless of whether Imogue had a way or not, the Fengwu girl was finally comforted. Mingxi, I heard that someone gave you a love letter in the cafeteria today. How was it? How was that girl? She was really brave in front of so many people. The girl who spoke was wearing the Swordmaster Department's uniform. Her figure was hot and extremely eye-catching. She was Elena, a fifth-year student of the Swordmaster Department. She was a famous beauty in the Swordmaster Department. She had a head of long, wavy burgundy hair, a pair of red eyes, and a sexy figure. Men were guaranteed to fall for her the moment they saw her. But who would have known that such a beauty was actually a fiery beauty with a fiery temper? This woman had once kicked a suitor's balls until they exploded. She had also kicked the thighs of her pursuers. Although there were so many men who were interested in her that they could circle the Central Plains, none of them really dared to date her. This woman was too violent, and no one wanted their balls to be kicked until they exploded. At this moment, this great beauty with a hot figure and a seductive look was sitting on the sofa in Mingxi's dormitory with a face full of interest. Obviously, she was very interested in the love letter confession at the cafeteria at noon. Big Sis Elena, please don't make fun of Mingxi. The news of someone confessing to him using his homework has already spread throughout the school. I'm sure he's feeling depressed right now. Arguros looked at Mingxi with a gloating smile. He had long been unhappy with this guy who was so popular with girls. It would be strange if he didn't take this opportunity to add insult to injury. You're just jealous, aren't you? Rugelas bluntly exposed him. As a roommate who had lived with him for 4 years, how could he not know what this guy was thinking? I'm going back to my room to read. Mingxi looked at the noisy dormitory with a headache. He directly left in the name of reading. The others couldn't stop him in time. They could only watch as Mingxi went upstairs. After Mingxi left, everyone looked at Skycliff. Skycliff was sitting on the sofa, wiping the long sword in his hand, as if he didn't care about anything. Elena and the others exchanged glances. Forget it. Let's ask Mingxi later. Would they admit that they were afraid of Skycliff's cold air? When Ajur found out about the love letter incident at the cafeteria, it was already dinner time. His roommates in the same dormitory took it as a joke and talked about it in the dormitory. Ajur was so angry that he almost got into a fight with the guy who talked about it the most. Fengwu was his good friend. How could anyone talk about her like that? Hearing that Fengwu's confession had spread throughout the school, even if Ajur knew how insensitive the Fengwu girl was, he was still worried. Moreover, he was the one who taught Fengwu how to write the love letter. If it wasn't for him, Fengwu wouldn't be like this. It was reasonable for him to find Fengwu as soon as possible. He couldn't let Fengwu hide and be sad alone. With that thought in mind, Ajur quickly left his dormitory and ran to Fengwu's dormitory to find her after kicking the roommate who talked about it as a joke. At this time, the atmosphere in dormitory 302 was tense. Ever since Rika heard about it, she hadn't been nice to Fengwu after returning to the dormitory. Rika was stuck in the middle and didn't know what to do. Because she had a good relationship with Rika, she couldn't go against Rika. She could only give Fengwu an apologetic look. Silda also heard about it. He wanted to comfort Fengwu, but when he saw the tense atmosphere in the dormitory, even the insensitive Silda felt uncomfortable all over. Fengwu didn't care about the tense atmosphere in the dormitory at all. Whitey had made a lot of delicious food for Fengwu tonight. She had a small bag, and Fengwu was sucking milk from a beautiful baby bottle inlaid with gems. She didn't know where he got it from, but he was blushing and sucking on the milk. He looked so cute. Fengwu was eating as if nothing had happened. Rika didn't want to see her so carefree. Some people are really shameless. She already had a child, but she still dared to write a love letter to Mingxi's student to confess. I really don't know what kind of face that person has. How thick does her skin have to be to do such a shameless thing? Rika elegantly poured a cup of fruit tea for herself. She had a decent smile on her face, but the most vicious words came out of her mouth. What do you mean by that? We're all in the same dormitory. Do you have to go overboard? Silda couldn't stand it anymore and said, "This has nothing to do with you. It's because of her that everyone in 302 is laughing at us. Don't tell me you still want to be in the same group as her?" Rika's words naturally contained some exaggeration. There were many people who laughed at Fengwu, but it didn't affect the whole dormitory. She made it sound so serious because she usually didn't like Fengwu, the only commoner in the dormitory. "Are you talking about me?" Fengwu only had time to deal with Rika after finishing a table of good dishes. "In the whole dormitory, other than you, is there anyone else who has done such a shameless thing?" Rika took a sip of the fruit tea. Her movements were elegant and decent, but the corner of her mouth was coldly raised. Her eyes revealed a trace of arrogance and malice. That was the gaze of a superior looking at a subordinate, the gaze of a noble lady looking at a commoner. Rika wanted to persuade her, but she couldn't say anything when she met Rika's gaze. Between Fengwu and Rika, she could only choose Rika. After all, she and Rika were in the same department, and both of them were noble ladies of high society. Although she liked Fengwu, she wouldn't choose to help her because of this little bit of affection. Silda was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She didn't like the arrogant Rika, and Fengwu was on good terms with her class. At this time, Silda naturally stood on Fengwu's side. In the whole school, there was always a rivalry between the swordmaster and mage departments. Most of the dormitory students had better relationships with swordmasters, while mages had better relationships with mages. Just by looking at the relationship between the students in the same dormitory, one could imagine how fierce the rivalry between the two departments was. Chapter 89. Rika looked left and right uneasily. She really didn't know what to do. Why couldn't her roommates get along so well? Silda took the initiative to stand beside Fengwu, looking like he was going to support Fengwu. As for Fengwu, she just tilted her head, her eyes filled with obvious confusion. Why is writing a love letter to Senior Ming she shameless? She clearly saw other girls writing love letters. Imogue also said that writing love letters was the most common way for girls to confess. Fengwu couldn't understand why Rika was so fierce. Was it because she wrote a love letter? You've already given birth, yet you still wrote a love letter to Senior Ming Shi. You really don't know your own name, and you're so shameless. Rika put down her teacup, not bothering to hide the disdain in her eyes. The baby is very cute. Why can't I write a love letter when I have a baby? Fengwu was even more confused. She wrote a love letter to Ming Shi because she wanted him to be the baby's father. Auntie Tianyue and Annie Lian both said that the baby would definitely need a father in the future. She learned from Senior Ming Shi very well. Since he thought of Master this much, he must be a very good person like Master. You're so shameless. You're already a pair of broken shoes. Don't tell me you're delusional enough to think that you're worthy of Ming Shi's student. She really didn't know if Fengwu was really stupid, or just pretending to be stupid. What does it have to do with you whether I'm worthy of Senior Ming Shi or not? Fengwu didn't ask this because she wanted to be sarcastic. She just didn't understand. You're so shameless. Everyone has the right to say that. Rika didn't expect that Fengwu not only didn't feel ashamed, but also acted innocent. Who was she pretending for? A commoner was a commoner. In order to climb up the social ladder, she would do anything. You think you're qualified to speak ill of Xiaowu? I think you're the one who's truly shameless. A juror, who was dressed in red, slowly pushed open the door and entered. A juror, I know you have a good relationship with Fengwu. Maybe you have some kind of relationship with her that we don't know about. Rika smiled ambiguously. However, this matter is an internal conflict in our dormitory. As an outsider, it's better for you to stay out of it. Rika was still rather wary of the first-year valedictorian Ajur. She didn't think that she could beat him, and of course, she also didn't think that he could make a move on her in her dorm room. Internal conflict? You even want to care about Xiaowu's love letter? You really think you're something? I hate women like you the most in my life. Ajur's eyes were very cold, but the temperature in the room was getting higher and higher, as if the whole room was going to burn. Fengwu was no stranger to this feeling. When she first met Orlando and the others, Ajur was like this in order to help her vent her anger. The hot air hit her body, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. Rika uneasily took a few steps back. What do you want to do? Have you forgotten that violence is not allowed in the Holy Court? If you touch me, you'll definitely be expelled from the Holy Court. Expelled? You think you're qualified to expel me? You really think too highly of yourself. I really don't know who gave you such confidence, just because of your family's noble title? A juror sneered. Suddenly, a red light flashed, and a red cherry blossom suddenly appeared in his hand. The cherry blossom was sent in the direction of Rika by a juror. When the cherry blossom approached Rika, she suddenly felt that her position had changed. She was no longer in the living room of the dorm room, but in a large cherry blossom forest. There was the fragrance of flowers everywhere, and there were cherry blossom trees full of cherry blossoms. The cherry blossom trees began to spin around her. Rika felt dizzy, as if she was constantly spinning in circles. What's going on? Why am I in this place? Could this be an illusion? Rika herself was a magician, so naturally, she was very familiar with the magician's methods. She knew that there were magicians who specialized in illusion. She was obviously in an illusion. Moreover, this illusion was of a very high level. With her strength, it was impossible for her to break the illusion by herself. Fortunately, this illusion was only an illusion to trap people. It didn't have any attack power. She was just trapped, Rika thought with some relief. Unfortunately, her rejoicing didn't take long before it turned into fear. The petals of the cherry blossom tree that was revolving around her began to fall one by one, then fluttered in the air around Rika. If that was all, then it wouldn't be a big deal, but those petals actually all turned into small flames. The small flames began to attack Rika. Her clothes caught fire first, then her hair, then her hands. Her entire body began to burn. Rika screamed in fright, shouting for help, but there was no one here. After her panic, she finally remembered her identity as a water magician. A condensation spell was cast, and soon a water ball was condensed in Rika's hand. This water ball was not big. Rika must be older, so it was impossible to condense a big water ball. When the water ball was condensed, Rika thought that this water ball could put out the flames on her body. But it was useless. It was useless. Not only was it useless, but her clothes were also burning faster. She had now forgotten that all this was an illusion. She only knew that she was in pain. The pain of being burned by fire was unimaginable for ordinary people. The fire on her body was getting bigger and bigger. Rika could only roll on the ground in pain. She hoped that she could put out the fire on her body and not experience such pain again. Soon, her hands were burned to the bones. Her whole body was burning. There was no longer a piece of good meat to be seen. She could almost smell the fragrance of meat in the air. Who is this? So shameless. She actually took off her clothes in public. She even cast a condensation spell on herself. She must be crazy. Could it be that she's gone crazy from studying magic? Come on, she's just a first-year student. What kind of magic could make her study herself like this? What kind of people are these first-year girls this time? At noon, a freshman confessed to senior Ming Shi, and at night, another freshman ran out and took off her clothes in public. I really don't know what these freshmen are thinking. What are they thinking? They want attention. They're really going crazy thinking about men. This sister is already very open-minded. I didn't expect that there would be a higher mountain. She even dared to take off her clothes in front of so many of us. When Rika woke up, she happened to hear the noisy voices around her. These voices were full of disdain and joy in her misfortune. What was going on? She clearly remembered that she was burned to death in the fire. Chapter 90. She recalled everything that had happened. She was in the dormitory when she was caught in an illusion. In the illusion, she saw herself being burned to ashes. When she woke up, she heard these voices. Rika opened her eyes and saw a large group of girls surrounding her. Just as she was about to ask what was going on, she felt a burst of cold air coming from her body. She looked down and immediately let out a frightened scream. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Rika screamed crazily and hugged her chest. At this moment, she was only wearing a bra that wrapped around her chest and a pair of shorts. Moreover, Her body was covered in water. Because her clothes and pants were wet, they couldn't cover anything at all. When she lowered her head, she could even see two bright red spots on her chest. Why is this happening? How did I become like this? It's Ajur and Fengwu. It must be them. They wanted to harm me. They are demons. Rika's heart was filled with hatred. She hated them so much. Ajur, Fengwu, you'll die a horrible death. You'll die a horrible death. Don't be afraid. Come, put on this cloak first. A warm voice suddenly sounded above Rika's head. Then, Rika felt something draped over her body. Rika looked up and saw a beautiful girl with purple hair looking at her worriedly. Thank you. After being mocked by so many people, the girl's kindness made her feel warm. She thanked the girl gratefully. No need to thank me. We are all magicians and are new students of the same batch. We should help each other. Zicheng smiled like an angel. Yes, the girl who helped Rika was Zicheng. Zicheng was also passing by and saw a large group of people surrounding this place. Out of curiosity, she went up to take a look. She saw a girl lying on the ground in her underwear. The clothes she was wearing had been torn to shreds. Not long after, the girl woke up. Her panicked and helpless look made Zicheng know that this girl had probably fallen into someone else's trap. Otherwise, how could a normal person make themselves like this? Hence, Zicheng stepped forward, wanting to help this pitiful girl. Rika, are you all right? Anika walked through the crowd and finally found Rika, who was still lying on the ground with a cloak covering her body. I'm fine. Let's go back first. Rika didn't want to stay here and be gossiped about. She tightened her cloak and stood up. With the help of Rika and Zicheng, she returned to room 302. Room 302 was empty. There was not a single person in it. It was as if the scene of them arguing with each other was just a dream. Annika poured 3 glasses of water for the 3 of them, while Rika went back to her room to change her clothes. Annika, what happened just now? Why did Rika become like this? Zicheng took a sip of water. Because too many things had happened in the afternoon, she wasn't in the mood to make tea. She only brought 3 glasses of warm water over. I don't even know where to start. Annika looked troubled. It wasn't that she didn't want to talk about it, but she didn't know where to start. Thinking about the methods she saw not long ago, Annika was very uneasy. She was originally a cheerful girl, but now she was frowning. I also want to know what Ajur did to me. Why did I come out of the dorm? Why did I become like this? Rika had changed into her school uniform and stood at the second-floor staircase. She looked very agitated, and there was obvious hatred in her eyes. Annika sighed. Although she didn't want to talk about this in front of outsiders, since Rika insisted, she could only tell her what happened during dinner. From Annika's narration, Rika knew what happened. It turned out that Ajur flicked a small cherry blossom at her, and that cherry blossom actually entered her forehead. After that, she started to show a face of pain. No matter how Rika called out, she didn't respond. After that, she started to scream and cast the water condensation spell on herself. She even rushed out like a madwoman. When Annika chased after her, she couldn't see Rika anymore. She could only search all the way and finally found Rika. The only thing she was thankful for now was that Rika didn't run to the male dorm. Although she lost face among the girls, at least she wasn't taken advantage of by the boys. Ajur, I won't let you go. Die. Die. Although Rika had already expected this outcome, she couldn't help but scream crazily when she heard what happened. She even threw the cup on the table to the ground, shattering it. Rika, don't be like this. You'll hurt yourself. Annika quickly pulled her down to sit on the sofa to stop her from throwing things around. Where are Fengwu and Ajur? And where did Silda go? Rika finally calmed down a little. After you ran out, Fengwu was taken away by Ajur. Silda helped me look for you. After she found you, she also left, Annika said uneasily. She knew Rika's temper. Rika was a very proud person, so she looked down on Fengwu's commoner background. Ajur probably saw how proud Rika was, so he used this method to humiliate her. Although Rika was in the wrong first, and Ajur wanted to help Fengwu vent her anger, she shouldn't have used this method to humiliate a girl. If Rika ran to the boys' dormitory, wouldn't her life be ruined? No matter how high Rika's achievements in water magic were in the future, what happened today would be a stain that would follow her for the rest of her life. Annika truly felt that Ajur was too cruel to treat a girl like this. Fengwu was the same. Why couldn't she persuade Rika? If she had, Rika wouldn't have ended up like this. Annika had completely forgotten that Rika was the one who was looking for trouble. They're all so nice. After doing such a terrible thing to me, they just left. As expected of the bitch's friends. Rika's face was full of viciousness that didn't match her age. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She couldn't wait to kill Ajur and Fengwu. She also didn't want Silda to have an easy time. What happened? Can you tell me? Why is Ajur going against Rika? Zicheng sat there and listened for a long time. Although she understood some of it, she had more questions in her heart. She knew that young man called Ajur. He was the first year's chief student. She heard that he had defeated the second year's chief student and was directly promoted. He was a powerful fire mage. She didn't know how strong Ajur was. Speaking of which, the two of them were in the same class. It was just that Ajur usually only hung out with his friends. She wanted to be friends with him, but he didn't care. In short, Zicheng's impression of Ajur was that he was a very arrogant person. Chapter 91. Isn't it because he wanted to stand up for his lover? There's a girl in our dorm called Fengwu. This afternoon, she was in the cafeteria. Rika's heart was filled with hatred, and she urgently needed to vent her emotions. When Zicheng asked, she naturally told Zicheng what she heard about Fengwu's shameless confession to Ming Shi. She also told him about the argument between the two during dinner and how Ajur came and embarrassed her in front of all the girls in the school. Fengwu confessed to Senior Ming Shi? Zicheng covered his small mouth and exclaimed. He couldn't believe that the girl who didn't like to talk or smile would confess to a boy. It really didn't seem like something she would do. Yeah, she's really overestimating herself, right? I really don't understand who she thinks she is. She even has a child, yet she still did such a shameless thing. I just said a few words to her, and Ajur made me like this. The two of them must have an abnormal relationship. But thinking about it, a woman who has a child out of wedlock can't be a good person. I feel that it's unbearable to be in the same dorm as her and breathe the same air. Rika disdainfully speculated the relationship between the two with the greatest malice. In her heart, Fengwu and Ajur were a pair of adulterous couple. If it wasn't for the fact that Fengwu's son and Ajur didn't have a trace of resemblance, she would definitely think that Fengwu's son was the product of their affair. Fengwu has a child? Zicheng was shocked. He really couldn't tell that Fengwu was only 14, 5 years old and already had a child. It was simply too shocking. Thinking back to modern times, there was also a child who became a mother at a young age. Those children didn't like to study and liked to fool around. He really didn't expect that Fengwu, who looked so innocent, was actually a rebellious girl who didn't have a simple private life. Yeah, that child has always been raised by her in the dorm. Rika and I shouldn't have agreed to let her raise the child in the dorm. What kind of place is our school? It's a place for learning, not for her to raise a child. Rika regretted that she didn't report to the school when she found out about the child's existence. If the school knew about this, Fengwu might have already been expelled. She was still a student and got pregnant and had a child. Such a problematic student, she believed that the high and mighty Notre Dame du Starlight would definitely not accept her. She even raised the child in the dorm. Zicheng exclaimed again. After experiencing 2 lives, she could be considered an old person who had lived for dozens of years. She had always been very confident in her judgment of people. She clearly looked like an innocent girl, but she did something that no woman on this continent dared to do. Could it be that she really misjudged her? Zicheng naturally began to suspect for the first time. Could Fengwu really be like what Eve said, a girl who liked to put on an act? That's right. That child has always been raised in the dorm. There's even a saint beast helping her take care of the child. Doesn't the school care about this? In the 21st century, she had never heard of a student living in a dorm with a child. The school doesn't know at all. Annie and I are soft-hearted and didn't report her. However, her good days are coming to an end. Tomorrow morning, we'll go and expose the fact that she had a child out of wedlock and secretly raised a child in the dorm. I'll see how she still has the face to stay in the school. When Annie heard Rika's words, she wanted to say something, but in the end, she held back. No matter what, Rika was the victim this time. It was better for her to remain neutral. Zicheng was a gentle and considerate girl. It was very easy for her to become friends with others. After chatting with Zicheng for a while, Rika directly treated Zicheng as a close friend. The relationship between the two improved by leaps and bounds. The next day, rumors of Fengwu shamelessly raising a child in the dorm began to spread throughout the school. This rumor was spread by people in the same dorm. This rumor had already overshadowed the news of Rika running around the female dorm naked. Of course, Rika spread the news so quickly not only because she wanted to embarrass Fengwu, but more importantly, she knew that in order to not attract attention, she had to do something more important to divert people's attention. In order to divert the attention of all the teachers and students away from the fact that she ran around the female dormitory naked, she had to come up with a bigger and more eye-catching story to attract everyone's attention. The fact that Fengwu had a child out of wedlock was much more attractive than the fact that she, a freshman, had run around naked. Rika was walking on the way home from school. It had only been a morning, but the rumor had already spread throughout the school. She believed that the teachers would definitely take action. Hurry up and get rid of this Notre Dame du Starlight's disgrace. Ajur and Imogue had naturally heard of this rumor as well. Although Imogue didn't know whether it was true or not, he also expressed his support for Fengwu. Because of this rumor, the students in the class all looked at Fengwu strangely. Silda had known about this for a long time, and many people in the class also knew that Silda and Fengwu were roommates in the same dorm. Naturally, there were many people who were on good terms with Silda who wanted to find out the truth. Silda had long guessed that this rumor was spread by Rika to take revenge on Fengwu. She didn't want to be Rika's accomplice, but she didn't know how to answer this question. Every time, she would just tell them not to spread this rumor and walk away. However, Silda didn't expect that it was her refusal to answer directly that made the students in the class even more certain that the rumor was true. I really didn't expect that Fengwu, who looks so innocent, would turn out to be such a whore. She's already a mother at such a young age. I really don't know what she's thinking. I knew she wasn't a good person. You guys don't know that she's usually very close to Ajur from the magic department. Even Imogue, who she's only known for a short time, is on her side. Her ability to seduce men is really extraordinary. Yeah. Yesterday, she even wrote a love letter to Senior Mingxi in front of so many people. She's so shameless. She's already given birth to a child. Yet she still wants to pursue Senior Mingxi, who's as beautiful and gentle as the moon. You women enough. You don't know anything, and you still have the nerve to talk nonsense here. Imogue pointed at a group of girls who were gossiping the most and yelled rudely. The girls also knew that it was wrong to talk behind someone's back. They were even caught red-handed by the person in question, so they scattered in embarrassment. The other people who were gossiping about Fengwu also lowered their voices. After all, the person in question was still in the classroom. Imogue helped Fengwu carry her textbook and pulled her out of the classroom. Afraid that someone would cause trouble for Fengwu, Imogue planned to send Fengwu back to the dorm. Chapter 92. Not long after the two walked out of the classroom, they met Mr. James. Fengwu, bring your child to the office. Mr. James seemed to know that Fengwu had a child. He didn't even ask for confirmation. Fengwu nodded and went back to the dormitory to pick up the child. As for Mr. James, he went straight to the office to wait for Fengwu and the legendary child. Imogue was very worried about Fengwu. Although they hadn't known each other for long, he still treated Fengwu as a friend. Now that his friend was in trouble, he couldn't help it all. This wasn't a good feeling at all. Everyone thought that Fengwu would be unable to recover from this setback or be too ashamed to face others. Unfortunately, the Fengwu girl wasn't an ordinary girl. She had always been very thick-skinned. She might not understand anything you said in front of her. Fengwu was a little puzzled as to why so many people were looking at her secretly and openly. This puzzlement existed for a short while before disappearing. Fengwu wasn't a child who would seek trouble for herself. She let Little White carry Little Bun, and the two humans and one beast openly walked on the school road together. Along the way, there were students pointing at her from time to time. Originally, the public confession of Mingxi yesterday had already caused a stir in the entire school. Who would have thought that the girl who confessed her love for Mingxi the next day was already the mother of a child? This made many girls who liked Ming Shi and boys who worshipped him dislike Fengwu. Everyone thought that her confession to Ming Shi was an insult to him. Ming Shi didn't say anything at first, but the boys and girls who liked and worshipped him had already taken action. They were all eager to teach Fengwu a lesson. Along the way, Fengwu finally brought the child into the teacher's office. The swordmaster and sorcerer department's offices weren't separated. The teachers of the two departments were now very focused on Fengwu. They had different opinions about Fengwu raising a child in the dormitory. Some teachers thought that Fengwu's private life was indecent and couldn't become a student of Notre Dame du Starlight. There were also teachers who thought that Fengwu should just send the child outside. After all, she had relied on her own abilities to enter the school. They couldn't just expel her. The teachers were directly divided into two factions. One faction wanted Fengwu to stay, while the other wanted Fengwu to leave the school. In short, there was a heated argument. "Come in. You must be Fengwu. Can you let me hold this child?" The sorcerer department's teacher, Rosalie, smiled gently and sweetly. When she saw the child in the holy beast's arms, her eyes were filled with love. "Sure." Fengwu nodded. Only then did Little White hand the little bun over to Rosalie's arms. What a cute child. Rosalie looked at the child in her arms. An indecipherable light flashed through her eyes. The other teachers stood to the side and watched quietly. They didn't say anything, nor did they look at Fengwu with disdain. They just watched quietly, as if Fengwu was an ordinary student. It was as if she hadn't given birth out of wedlock. If the people standing here were a juror or emogue, they would definitely notice that there was something wrong with the teacher's expressions. Their curious and puzzled expressions were definitely abnormal. But the one standing here was Fengwu. This child was born to not be able to read people's expressions. "Let me hold him too." The swordmaster teacher, Elrog, gently took the child. He held the child in his arms and looked at him. No one knew what he was looking at. "Where's the child? Let me see him." "Where is he? Let me see him first." An old voice suddenly rang out from the office door. Following the voice was an old man with a head full of white hair and a long white beard. The old man's beard was so long and dense that it covered most of his face. "Vice Principal." The teachers bowed respectfully at the sight of the newcomer. Fengwu didn't know who the newcomer was, but she did the same as the teachers. "Let me see the child." The vice director noticed Elrog, who was carrying the child. He ran to Elrog at a speed that did not match his age. Then, he gently took the child from Elrog. "This child is really good-looking, as expected of him." The vice principal seemed to have thought of someone. He seemed to have become gentler. "You must be the child's mother. You're amazing. You were able to give birth to him safely. You're amazing." The vice principal's voice was filled with obvious excitement. "I almost died." When Fengwu spoke, her eyes were filled with grief. When Fengwu first transmigrated, she was giving birth to a child. This child was especially difficult to give birth to. The original Fengwu had all her life force and energy sucked out. That was why she died. Naturally, Tianlan didn't know this. She only knew that when she became Fengwu, she felt a force constantly sucking away her life force and energy. If she hadn't transmigrated and brought most of her energy with her, she would have died a long time ago. "Good child, you're really good. Don't worry, the principal and I won't let you leave. In the future, study hard in school. If it's not convenient for you to take care of the child, you can leave the child with me. I'm an old man and don't have much to do. I can help you take care of the child." The vice principal's extraordinary enthusiasm made the teachers in the office wonder where the child came from. Could the child's father be a relative or friend of the vice principal? Otherwise, why would the vice principal be so happy? It was as if he had a grandson. "No need. Xiaobai will help me take care of the child." Fengwu really liked this kind grandpa, but when she thought of Xiaobai who could take care of the child, she obediently shook her head and rejected the vice principal. "You really don't want to think about it? I'm very good at taking care of children." The vice principal seemed to really want to help. What was with the expression on his face that said, "If you don't let me help, you can't leave"? The teachers felt that there must be something wrong with the way they woke up in the morning. After a long time of persuasion, the vice principal finally got the right to take care of the child. When Fengwu went to class or had business, Xiaobai would bring the child to the vice principal. The vice principal would help take care of the child. The vice principal got the answer he wanted and was satisfied. On the other hand, the teachers were confused. Could this child really be the vice principal's grandson? But that couldn't be right. Did the vice principal have a son? He didn't even have a daughter. How could a vice principal without a child have a grandson? After repeatedly reminding Fengwu to take good care of the child, the vice principal finally allowed Fengwu and the little bun to leave together. After that, the vice principal left as well. Then, the school issued a notice. The notice said that Fengwu's child was born because she accidentally ate the pregnancy fruit and did not do anything that would bring shame to the school. Because of Fengwu's family situation, the school considered the child's need to be taken care of and agreed to let the child be raised by Fengwu. Chapter 93. Once this news was out, the entire school was in an uproar. No one would have thought that Fengwu's child was not born from a messy relationship, but from eating the pregnancy fruit by mistake. What was the pregnancy fruit? There was a mysterious country in the Far East. In that country, there was a mysterious fruit tree. If a woman ate the fruit from the tree, she would be able to conceive a child. The gender of the child was uncertain, and it all depended on luck. This fruit that could make a person pregnant after eating it was called the pregnancy fruit by the locals. The production of this fruit was not high even in the local area. Every time it appeared, it would be fought over by female swordmasters and sorcerers who did not want to get married and only wanted to have children. Some women who had been unable to conceive for many years even saw the pregnancy fruit as their last hope. This fruit was extremely rare even in Central City, and Fengwu had actually eaten it by mistake and given birth to a son. It suddenly felt so surreal. How could it be? Do you guys think it's true? That Fengwu really ate the pregnancy fruit to give birth to a child? It should be true. If she's really as bad as the rumors say, the school wouldn't have specially issued a statement to protect her. I think so too. I thought it was strange at first. Fengwu looked so obedient. So why would she do something as shameless as giving birth to a child out of wedlock? Turns out it was all a misunderstanding. But she's really unlucky to have eaten the pregnancy fruit and become a mother at such a young age. Isn't that so? She's too unlucky. The voices of disdain and insults towards Fengwu had disappeared in less than half a day, leaving behind only sympathy and curiosity. This incident should have been a fatal blow to Fengwu's reputation, but in less than half a day, the tide had turned. Although not all of the voices of condemnation towards Fengwu had heard the news, there were no longer as many people who harbored ill intentions towards her. When Rika saw the announcement, she gritted her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. She could not believe that this incident, which should have dealt a huge blow to a girl's reputation, had been resolved in less than half a day after she was despised by the entire school. How could she accept this? Fengwu's bad reputation had been mostly cleared, and the news of Rika running around naked in the girls' dormitory slowly spread. Previously, there weren't many people talking about it because there was a bigger gossip. Now that the gossip about Fengwu had been clarified, the girls naturally used Rika's naked running incident as a joke. To be honest, Rika was just a new student, so not many people knew her. If it wasn't for Anika calling out her name, those seniors would only know that she was a new student and wouldn't know her name at all. After realizing this, Rika started to hate Anika. She even started to suspect that Anika was trying to frame her by calling out her name in that situation. Because of this suspicion, Rika and Anika's relationship fell to a freezing point. In the dormitory and in class, they went from being close friends to strangers. Anika was a cheerful and lively girl. In their class, Anika definitely had more friends than Rika. Although Anika felt wronged by Rika's estrangement, she didn't shamelessly ask for Rika's friendship back. Anika's birth status wasn't lower than Rika's to begin with. She was also a spoiled little princess in her family since she was young. Anika couldn't bring herself to beg for Rika's sake without her dignity. Moreover, their friendship hadn't reached the point where one of them couldn't live without the other. These were all for later, so let's not talk about them for now. Let's talk about how Rika felt when she heard that the main character of the rumors in school had changed from Fengwu back to herself. She returned to the dormitory with a gloomy face. Not long after she returned, Silda and Rika came in one after another. Fengwu was the last to return. Shout by carried Little Bun directly into Fengwu's room. Fengwu was left in the living room by Silda to ask Little Bun about Little Bun. In the past, they had asked Fengwu who Little Bun's father was, but Fengwu had always pursed her lips and refused to say anything. Now that they finally knew Little Bun's background, they didn't expect to find out in such a way. Rika felt uncomfortable all over when she saw Silda's gloating expression. She felt like everyone in the dormitory was laughing at her. This made the arrogant Rika feel like she was going crazy. After glaring hatefully at Fengwu and Silda, Rika went upstairs alone and locked herself in her room. She didn't even come out to eat when it was dinner time. Rika kindly packed some food from the restaurant for Rika, but Rika didn't appreciate it at all. She didn't even open the door for Anika. As for Silda, she didn't like Rika's princess-like personality. Fengwu naturally didn't care about Rika either. From the moment she moved into this dormitory, Fengwu knew that Rika didn't like her. Fengwu also didn't like the way she looked at Rika. She was never one to please others, so naturally, she didn't care about what Rika was thinking. A few days later, Fengwu didn't see Mingxi in the restaurant again. She was a little unhappy. Ajur, on the other hand, breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want to see Fengwu like a moth to a flame. Although Mingxi was a good marriage partner, his family wasn't likely to accept Fengwu. He didn't want Fengwu to be hurt in the future. In order to stop Fengwu from thinking about Mingxi, he used the excuse that he had enough rest and brought Fengwu to the Adventurers Guild again. The guild was still as crowded as before. The receptionist was still as beautiful as ever. After the two entered the guild, they went to the mission board to choose a mission. Because the last mission required them to go to another country, which had a big impact on their studies, Ajur planned to find two missions that were close to them and didn't require them to go too far away to do them. After choosing for a long time, he finally found a decent quest. This quest was very simple, but it was a little troublesome. The quest was to find a lost pet dog. This dog belonged to a noble lady. This lady was famous for doting on her pets as much as her own life. This time, she offered a high price of 500 gold coins to find her beloved dog. In the Adventurers Guild, this kind of mission could be accepted by multiple people. The last person to find the person would be considered to have completed the mission and would receive the reward. After successfully accepting the dog hunting mission, Ajur wanted to see if there were any other good missions to accept. Suddenly, the mission board refreshed. Heavens! A reward of 200,000 gold coins. I can't believe it. I actually saw the legendary S-rank mission. It's been a long time since someone posted a mission of this level. No wonder the reward is so high. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.